in session. Appreciate the out of the sitting of the meeting. We had an arrangement to, and later on we are now on very. It is a special because there was a
can you switch off the radio? Chairperson, please switch off the camera. We hardly can hear you. And the TV behind you.
What are you saying I should do? I can't.
Chairperson, there's a background noise. I don't know if it's your radio or TV. We can't hear you properly.
Mama, I didn't hear you. I can hear you are saying something.
Chairperson, can you hear me now?
Faintly, honestly, very what I yeah. If I really can someone share the meeting then?
Chairperson, Chairperson, can I make a proposal?
Honorable Peterson, but yeah.
Chairperson, can I make a proposal that we nominate MP Teki, Putas Teki to chair the meeting whilst you are struggling?
I'm sure they meet if they does, let's do that.
But the chairperson has already proposed, let's allow Nozipo to chair the meeting. In the process, we are nominating the acting chair. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Med has proposed that Mr. Tseki must act as a co-chairperson. Who is seconding Ms. Medi Peterson? Ms. Tseki, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much, Nosipo, and good morning to everyone. I second the proposal made by Honorable Medi Peterson. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Tseki?
Hello, Nosipo.
Yes, the platform is yours now until Mr. Mashiko is sorted. Mr. Mashiko doesn't have a phone at the moment, so I won't be able to communicate with him further than here.
Is using the iPad.
Yes, and it's not set up properly. He must still go to Parliament after this meeting to sort it out also.
Okay, let's hope it gets sorted. But do we still form a quorum, I hope?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues, members. Let's move. I think we're on the prayer meditation. Masipo, were we there? Nasipo, I lost you guys, or you lost me.
Yes, Acting Chair, we were on the item 2, moment of silence for meditation.
Yes. Can we just do that one? Or maybe that silent was exactly that. Let's move to item 3.
Yes, Mr. Tseki, I received 2 apologies from Mr. Hendricks and Ms. Mukhuto. That is on.
Okay, let's note those apologies. Next item.
Consideration and adoption of the committee program.
Nosipo, let me just check. I don't know how long will it take since that we have adopted the agenda, because I wanted to ask, can't we do it after that we have released the department? Is
That is,
possible?
it is
Is it
possible.
possible?
Yes.
Okay. Because I can see the number is quite high here, showing that the department has joined us. Okay,
Alright.
can we deal with it after we have released the department, the program for the committee?
Yes, Chairperson, the department and CTA, ne? We've got 2 presentations.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Let's start with number 1. And Dr. Mahlobo, I heard your voice. Not sure if the minister is there and the deputy minister Shabalala. You are welcome. Please lead us on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. My great, my colleagues, the deputy ministers on the platform, Deputy Minister Mahlobo, Deputy Minister Shabalala. And let me greet the chair and the acting chair currently, and all the honorable members of the portfolio committee. Let me also greet our officials led by TG and all of them on the platform, and greet TCTA. We thank and appreciate this opportunity to present to make this presentation on our financials, including the annual performance plan that we are heading for this particular financial year, but also the other plans that we have that relate and support the annual performance plan, and of course how we plan to spend. Just our remarks on those. We think that number one, on our priorities, we're trying to be as practical as possible this year, having learned in the last financial year that there is a need to prioritize infrastructure, both by ourselves, that relate directly to ourselves, by our agencies, including TCTA and other water services, underwater, other water boards. This is important because it is highlighted by everyone who is making a concern about water security in the country, and therefore they need to plan ahead in terms of storage of water and other related activities that relate to supply of water, or increased potential for us to supply water to communities. It also picks up old projects that should have been completed some years ago due to the age at which they started. So we're picking them up, and what we're planning to run with them. But on the other hand, we realize that just planning around bulk water or even water resource management issues and not deal with services, water services management, which is done largely by municipality is self-defeating. We've learned very hard lessons, and we realize that much as it is not our direct responsibility as per legislation, but because we are supposedly be or should be dealing with norms and standards only on services. But the call from the ground, from the people throughout the country is very strong. The call or as a result of their grievances about water supply, in other words, water services. So we have felt obliged to intervene as a practice to that area of water services management, meaning in the sphere of municipalities as far as water is concerned. And so we want to strengthen that, regularize that, such that it is no longer is seen to be causing any alarm or discomfort, and even look at the legislation thereof. But we are also at the same time, by June this year, completing the reconfiguration, which was started in 2021. It has been slow in some cases, and we want to complete that. And then, but we also wanted to refresh the whole issue of licensing, right up to the tribunal, how the tribunal, water tribunal works. And we feel that it is very important. But that includes also involving people in water use via CMAs, via water user associations, and thereby enabling the public to participate in water-related matters. We think it's very important. Those are the strategic objectives that we are following this year, financial year. But internally, the department is, it has been a bit of a slow process on finalizing the structure, but not finalizing the makeup of the structure, but the implementation, complete implementation. They are finalizing that. And then issues that relate to finance. We have made a lot of progress in terms of irregular, fruitless, and unauthorized expenditure. But our aim is to eliminate that altogether. We're not yet at that stage, but we're getting closer. And that includes eliminating under expenditure, which was grossly big in the last financial year, and were not the last but one financial year. And we have halved it now, but this financial year is our year of eliminating it altogether. And then other internal matters have to do with filling of posts, strengthening the department as we undertook. And we want to start the last, the process of filling the last DTG post, which was held up by disciplinary related processes. That has been completed, and our way to do that is now open. And then the last thing will be our allocation for this MTEF, and also per year in terms of the breakdown. And we aim at using our allocation optimally, having learned all the lessons in the last financial year, where we need to strengthen, where we need to tighten up, and where we need stronger supervision from ourselves as the ministry. I want to thank you at this stage, Chair, and ask DG to present. Thank you very much.
DG.
Thank you very much, Minister, and good morning, honourable members, Minister and Deputy Ministers. This presentation is a presentation on our annual performance plan for 23-24. So it covers the normal.
Can you,
Yes.
sorry, can you make it a presentation mode? It should not show two papers, just to show one page on the screen so that we can have the size bigger.
Okay, should be right now. So the presentation includes a short introduction, which I will do. Okay, and then Babawa Nyaka.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's now better.
The Babawa and Nyaka will present on the normal annual performance plan information, including targets. And then the CFO will present on the financial information about this financial year that we've now started in the financial section of the presentation. We are sitting in the boardroom here in Pretoria with all the DDGs and other key staff in the department to assist with answering of questions. The Minister is in his introductory remarks covered most of these, of the content of these first two introductory slides on the strategic priorities, both outward-looking and inward-looking, of the department for this financial year. The strategic priorities haven't changed much from last financial year because the challenges remain. Additional focus on those areas indicated in this slide where we've made less progress over the last year. We've made relatively good progress in terms of accelerating the implementation because of a range of major projects. Under the leadership of the Minister, a number of projects which were previously not moving and had been delayed for a long time have now been unblocked and are now in the implementation phase, or the blockages in the financing and planning stages have been removed. The Lesotho Highlands Phase 2, which was delayed for a long time, is now in the implementation phase. The contractors are on site in Lesotho. The Nkumasi project, which is now in the implementation, the Lesotho delayed for a long time. The raw water to is now in the implementation phase. The contractors are blocked for a long time because there wasn't funding available for it, which was in the agreement with National Treasury. And then some projects similarly has been unblocked in terms of agreeing on a funding solution with National Treasury. And there are a range of other major which have been unblocked and are now in the process of implementation or earlier stages have been unblocked. So in that area, we've made good progress. Areas where we need to pay more attention, if we're going to have water security in South Africa in future, we need to diversify our water mix more. So there is substantial use of groundwater in South Africa, but there's some potential for making more use of groundwater, but perhaps more importantly is that it needs to be sustainable use of groundwater. And in that area, we need to do a lot more work as the department. And then the water mix in our coastal towns also needs to be diversified through increasing use of seawater desalination in future. Our establishment of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency is underway. It's in public consultation phase with consultations taking place in NEDLAC with the NEDLAC task team and with the current lenders to the TCTA. And once that is
recording in progress
established, it will assist with enabling higher amounts of finance to be raised without necessarily requiring government guarantees for investment in national water bulk infrastructure. An area where we need to heighten our focus where we haven't yet made as much progress as we would like to make is in terms of strengthening water services at municipal level. Our interim blue and green drop reports and our ongoing monitoring of municipalities indicates that water services are still in general deteriorating at municipal level in terms of their reliability. And we will have a particular focus in this year in terms of strengthening what we do as DWS to support and regulate municipalities to try and arrest the turnaround, arrest the decline in reliability of municipal water and sanitation services and to turn it around. That's probably the most important focus for the department in terms of making the need to make more progress in the current financial year. We are also on an ongoing basis looking at ways to strengthen our regulatory interventions to address pollution of the environment and communities from wastewater. And in that area, both in that area, we are also on an ongoing basis regard to during this year, we will be introducing standardized regulatory protocols or processes across all the provinces for regulatory actions to be taken where there's pollution of the environment and where municipalities are not meeting minimum norms and standards. In our application of regulatory enforcement, both in terms of the National Water Act and in terms of the Water Services Act. Over the last year, we did make some progress in terms of establishing the Water Partnerships Office to try and get more private sector investment in the water sector, particularly at municipal level. We have a very high level of private sector investment in national bulk infrastructure through the TCTA, and that will increase with the NWRIA. But the big gap is at municipal level where there needs to be more private sector involvement. And that will also be a major focus in terms of trying to facilitate more projects at municipal level. We made quite good progress in terms of turning around water use license turnaround times, improving them in the last financial year. And we are currently filling key posts in the regional offices, which with the intention of getting closer to 100% of water use licenses being processed within the 90 days target set by the President. In addition, if we're going to have water security in South Africa moving forward, in addition to building dams and using the remaining surface water capacity which is available and diversifying the water mix through, for example, making more use of groundwater and seawater desalination. In addition to those things, we must also, as a country, use water more sparingly if we're going to have water security in the country, because there are limitations to which more water can be supplied through capturing surface water or through developing groundwater and desalination. And South Africa is a highly water scarce country, but our levels of consumption of water are high compared to the capturing challenge. And one of the key aspects of this, which requires further improvements, in particular, of consumption of physical municipalities, which we need to work with municipalities to pay attention to. Then, which priority and focus for us, where we need to make more progress, is on the issue of billing and revenue. Water sector is at risk as a result of weak billing and revenue collection at municipal level, which results in cascading financial sustainability, financial systems in the water value chain. Honourable members will be aware that we had to close one of our water boards, City Water, because it became bankrupt as a result of non-payment by municipalities which were its clients. And the debts owed by municipalities to water boards and subsequently from water boards to DWS are escalating at an alarming rate and pose a major threat to the future sustainability of the water sector. So that has to be a major priority for us. And then, as the Minister mentioned, we also want to continue with our process of institutional development and institutional consolidation in the water sector through the establishment of the catchment management agencies, the transformation of irrigation boards into water users associations, which is very important for transformation in the sector. The Minister also covered our internal strategic priorities. One of our key priorities that, as the accounting officer, I'm working closely with the Chief Financial Officer on is in order to address our under expenditure and to improve the performance of our construction unit is to improve our infrastructure procurement. We have put in place better processes for procurement. And during this financial year, we intend to see infrastructure procurement become more effective and quicker, which should result in a decrease in under expenditure. And as the Minister mentioned, we are also taking other measures to ensure that this financial year we reduce our under expenditure to zero. We reduced it substantially in this financial year, which has just been completed compared to the year before. But this financial year, we want to reduce it to zero. Our financial and HR controls have been improved. There are still some improvements that we're still going to put in place. But honourable members will remember from the last time in Cape Town and we presented, our irregular and unauthorised expenditure has decreased hugely from the levels that it was at 4 or 5 years ago. And it remains a focus for us to eradicate all irregular expenditure. And then as indicated previously by members of the Portfolio Committee, we need to strengthen our external communications. And that's also a major focus for us in the current financial year. The Minister has covered this on the filling of key positions. So I now like to hand over to Babawa to present on the content of the annual performance plan.
Thank you, DG. Good morning to the Honourable Portfolio Committee members, to the Minister, the Deputy Ministers, and my colleagues sitting around the table. The three programs that are listed there, administrating water resources management, will just be the details of what actually constitutes the activities in the annual performance plan over the medium term. This slide talks to the compliance requirements that the department will seek to achieve. For this year, we're planning to complete our internal audit plan as approved by the audit committee. We also have got a risk management plan in place, and we have provided a copy of it as an annexure to this presentation for members to see per program. And also in terms of our human resources aspects, we prioritizing the filling of technical skills, engineers and scientists, and also training interventions that will be implemented over the period. In terms of safety and security issues, we are conducting assessments of our facilities over the period. And also in terms of our information technology, we are planning to maintain our systems at 90% level. Our communications program, we have got a plan in place, and we're planning to implement at least 98% of what is contained there. This slide talks to, amongst other things, the required targeted procurement supporting small, medium, micro enterprises. That talks to the targeted procurement for qualifying small enterprises at 30%, and also exempted micro enterprises at also 30%. And the designated groups within each category, we have included respective targets of 40% for women, 30% for youth, and 7% for persons with disabilities. Also, we still have our financial and recovery plan, which the DG mentioned certain aspect to it. We plan to implement at least 91% of what is in the plan and also spend 100% of our budget. And as the DG had mentioned, we are planning to reduce our data days to at least 150 days and over the medium term to at least 100 days by the 25-26 financial year. We also have an international relations program that we're planning to implement at least 75% of over the medium term, and also a partnerships program that we are planning to implement at least 96% for this financial year, with an intention of increasing it to 98% over the medium term. When it comes to the water resources management program, which is the technical aspects of the department, you'll see that the department plans to deal with certain water resource quality activities by determining our resource quality objectives and doing some technical work, which looks at ecological, wetlands and scenarios and the associated legal requirements to conduct that work, and also monitoring our river systems for resource-directed measures. And we've listed the targeted rivers with the intention of increasing them to 11 by the end of the medium term. And also, we are planning to implement one of our main monitoring programs on the river ecostatus with the target of 71 rivers by the end of the medium term. Also, within this program, talking to the management of waste plans, we have planned to develop strategies for the 2 water management areas as listed there. And by the end of the medium term, we should be having at least 5 of those waste management plans and strategies developed, and also implementation or within the 5 water management areas indicated in that slide, and also piloting the waste discharge charge system in 3 water management areas, and with the intention of implementing it nationally over the medium term. When it comes to water resources planning, we are planning to, and with the intention, our national water and sanitation master plan that was published in 2018, and also to develop and complete reconciliation strategies within the water supply systems as indicated in that slide, and complete operating rules and specialist strategies and studies in the 10 water supply systems with the intention of increasing it to 11 to 12 by the end of the medium term. Then also in terms of water resources planning, we are also planning to update our climate change strategy for the first year, with the intention of making sure that it is disaggregated per water management area, at least by 4 water management areas by the end of the medium term. In terms of bulk groundwater planning projects and the completion of the decisions for infrastructure that is planned for implementation, and those are the infrastructure projects we plan to have. It's a total of 7 by the end of the medium term, 2023 medium term. And these are the pipeline of bulk groundwater infrastructure projects that we plan to have in place to secure the implementation of the water security as mentioned by the minister and the DG. Also, we have got a significant water resource monitoring program with associated information systems that we plan to maintain. This slide indicates the monitoring programs that we have with the intention of increasing them from the current 6 that we're planning to have to 8 by the end of the medium term, and also maintaining the existing water and sanitation information systems as listed in that slide. And also we are planning to implement our national digitized integrated water and sanitation monitoring system by the end of the medium term. Also, in terms of the monitoring system, we have got gauging stations that we're planning to construct and also refurbish. And that slide talks to at least 2 by the end of the medium term that we're planning to construct, and also 2 that we're planning to refurbish by the end of the medium term. And the first year, which is this current financial year, by the implementation readiness studies. Also, in terms of the system, we have got to make sure that the 4 projects are implemented. In terms of strategic water resources infrastructure, that will be implementation readiness. We have indicated at least 6 that we're planning to put in the implementation readiness for readiness. We have indicated to put for the next medium term. And also, we also have indicated additional projects that we're planning to have under construction by the end of the medium term, 3 for the current financial year, 5 for the next financial year, and 6 by the end of the 2025-2026 financial year. And then in terms of completing, we are planning to complete 1 project by the end of the 2025-2026 financial year, with 1 we have completed by the end of this 2022-20. We are planning to project by the end of the 2025. Our infrastructure, our water infrastructure, we have got a maintenance plan, which we are planning to honor. We are starting at 70% with the intention of increasing it to 80% by the end of the medium term. We do sometimes have unscheduled maintenance. We are planning to maintain it to at least 30% and below this financial year, and with the intention of reducing it to less than 20% by the end of the medium. We do sometimes evaluation of our dams, and the number of dams that we're planning to do dam safety evaluations is 30 for this financial year, with the intention of increasing the number to 40 by the end of the term, and the number also of the completion of our dam safety rehabilitation projects. We are currently planning to complete 2 with the intention of completing 8 by the end of the term. Conveyance systems as well, we are planning to at least do 10 by this financial year, with the intention of increasing it to 17 kilometers by the end of the term, and also adherence with our water supply agreements for our key strategic water users. We are planning to maintain that to be at 80% over the medium term. In terms of the completion of the bill, National Water Amendment Bill, we are hoping that we will be receiving cabinet approval by the end of this financial year, with the intention of, and we're hoping that by the end of the term it will be adopted into law. With the National Water Resources Strategy, our 3rd edition, we are planning to have it finalized by the end of this financial year, with the intention of doing monitoring and evaluation over the next 2 outer financial years. Raw water charges, we are planning to publish those per financial year, and as the teacher has mentioned, we are planning to have at least 80% of the applications finalized within the required 90 days, as mentioned by the press. So we are planning users for compliance with their water license conditions, and investigate at least 80% of non-compliance cases that have been reported to us. We're also planning to do, in terms of our regulation prescripts, publishing the water research levy approved, and also publish the green drop report in terms of the requirements, and also monitor the wastewater systems against their regulatory requirements. In the subsequent slide, honorable members will just be disaggregating the number of wastewater systems that we're planning to assess in line with the green drop regulatory requirements. Also, another plan in terms of advancing our water allocation reform, we want to do a validation and verification in at least 2 water management areas, and with the intention of doing a total of 4 by the end of the 25-26 financial year. As I had mentioned in the previous slide, this is just an indication of the green drop wastewater assessments that we'll be doing. You'll see that we're targeting 852 within the Water Services Authority, which is the municipal space. Public Works is a total of 122.
Mezuko. Oh, there it comes back. I was just seeing a black screen, but it's back now. Thank you. I wanted to check it's only me or
okay.
The rest.
Okay. Also, Chairperson, it is a total of 30 that are the systems that are within the state-owned entities and also private institutions. Another part in terms of the water resources management, it talks to the institutions, which is what the DG mentioned, monitoring of the compliance of our existing entities, and also finalizing the establishment of the catchment management agencies, and making sure that the governing boards are developed and appointed over the medium term. Also, the DG mentioned the establishment of the infrastructure agency, and also the transformation of irrigation boards. And another activity that we're planning to do in terms of the institutions is the water economic regulator, the gazetting for establishment. We're still going to be working towards developing the bill. When we come to the third program, which is water services management, we're talking to finalizing the water conservation and water demand management strategies within those sectors, and also assessing water losses in 8 large water supply systems as listed there. And also we are talking to doing a no drop progress report, which is a water use report for this financial year, and assessing a total of those water services authorities for efficiencies next year, and another progress report in the final medium term. Also, our infrastructure projects that will be for planning. We have indicated a number of water supply feasibility studies and implementation readiness studies, and that also our infrastructure projects ensure that there is support for water supply and also wastewater treatment works. Another activity that we are planning to have is bulk infrastructure projects. We have categorized them into 2 main categories. Those that will be under construction, which is a total of 99 for this financial year, and the numbers are going to go to 62 by the end of the medium term, and the list of those that plan for completion is also included. Another activity that we're doing, we received additional funding for budget for infrastructure projects relating to the bulk infrastructure projects. We have separated those bulk infrastructure projects to indicate the numbers over the medium term, and that are planned for construction, and those that will be planned for completion. In terms of the water services infrastructure projects, we have included the numbers of 374 for this financial year, and the numbers are gradually reducing over the medium term to about 300 by the end of the term, and those that are planning for completion. And we've also included the number of intervention projects that we have in the and we've also included the sanitation that we're planning to completion. This slide is just a disaggregation of the information that I have indicated in the previous slide, just on a high level, just to indicate where the 99 projects are in terms of the provinces. You'll see that, and it's also related to the number of sanitation systems, which are still mainly in the Free State and some Sanitate and some in the Northern Cape that still need to be connected. And then this slide talks to the municipal reliability plans that we're planning to do over the medium term. We are accelerating this one to make sure that we at least have 22 reliability plans for this financial year, so that we can cover all the 44 over the medium term district municipalities by the end of the term. And also we are planning to do our national municipal strategic self-assessment reports and municipal priority action plan by the end of the financial year. In terms of the regulatory services amendment bill, and making sure that by the end of the term, it could be asserted into law. Also, monitor reports and national sanitation integrated plan, finalize it and make sure that it is implemented by the end of the 25-26 financial year. Also, a national fecal sludge management strategy, with the intention of making sure that we have got at least 5 case studies by the end of the medium term, and bulk water tariffs per financial year. And this is just an indication of when we are going to be publishing our Blue Drop report, which is within the 24-25 financial year. And we are planning to monitor the water supply systems against their regulatory requirements. Then this last slide, in terms of performance information, talks to performance evaluation of the existing water boards, as the DG has mentioned, that we now have got 8 water boards down from the 9. And also this is an indication, a detailed indication of which water boards we plan to reconfigure per financial year. We're starting with the 3 for this financial year, 2 over the next 2 financial years, respectively. Thank you very much. I would like to hand over to the CFO for the financial aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to Minister, Deputy Ministers, Portfolio Committee, DG and colleagues. Chairperson, I'll be taking the committee through the financing of the annual performance plan of the department. The financing of the annual performance plan is covered by 2 accounts. First is the main account, which is what we normally refer to as the vote, and then also the water trading entity. So combined together, the 2 accounts, we have an allocation of 132 billion over the medium-term expenditure framework. And I will start first with the main account and then move over to the water trading entity. On the main account, Chairperson, the total allocation is 72 billion over the MTF, as reflected on the screen. That is mainly made up of the compensation of employees, of which 5.6 billion has been allocated over the MTF, and our goods and services is 5.6 billion, also reflected per financial year in the outer years. Significant portion of the budget, Chairperson, is our transfers and subsidies, where we have an allocation of 46 billion. That includes also conditional grants to local government. We also have an allocation of payments for capital assets, mainly where the department is responsible for the construction of infrastructure. And thereafter, we transfer those to the beneficiary municipalities, and they are classified as allocations, indirect allocations. It was also mentioned earlier on, Chairperson, that we do have targets under budget facility for infrastructure. And I'm also confirming that we do have a budget for those projects as reflected on slide number 30. We have a number of projects from Moretele and North. We also have Bilansberg and all those that are listed there on the slide. And the allocation has been made available over the medium-term framework. These projects, Chairperson, are the national priority projects which have a high impact, and they also create quite a lot of jobs for the country, and we'll be able to talk to those in detail. The details of all these allocations are part of the appendix to this presentation per province. The slide here, Chairperson, represents the allocation of the department per program, as indicated earlier on, but also per economic classification. Water services management, as it can be seen there, takes quite a lot of our budget. Out of the 72 billion over the MTF, 48 billion has been allocated towards water service management. And also under economic classification, provinces, municipalities, our transfers to local government included in there is 23 billion. This is where this effort and focus to work closely with municipalities, OCTA and Treasury is concentrated, Chairperson, to make sure that we do monitor these funds that are where this is being transferred to the municipalities. We also have transfers to water boards. Those are listed under what we have there as public corporations. Those are just the accounting items that we are using, but included in there are your water boards. The next slide, Chairperson, is Program 1, Administration, and there are the sub-programs. This is the program that supports the entire department. Most of our IT services are shared services, and they are also housed in this program. And also we have financial management, office accommodation for our rentals of buildings through the Department of Public Works. Program 2, Chairperson, the allocation over the MTF is 17.9 billion, and all those targets that were listed earlier on by my colleague, they are funded through this program, and there are different sub-programs under this program as reflected on the slide there. Slide number 34, this Chairperson is the water services management, as indicated earlier on, that a significant portion of our budget is towards this program, and services also under transfers and subsidies. The allocation to local government over the MTF is 23 billion. We also have transfers through to the water boards, which are also implementing projects within the regional bulk infrastructure grant at the value of 7.9 billion, local government 9 billion over the MFF and other fixed structures that represent those allocations where I said there are allocations in kind where the department normally intervenes to assist some of the municipalities. And once we are done with the infrastructure, it is transferred to the beneficiary municipality. Slide number 35, Chairperson, is a summary of all the infrastructure programs, the regional bulk infrastructure, water services, transfers to the water boards, as well as the Komati Basin Water Authority. So those transfers to the municipalities are covered, as I said, through grants to local government, also through allocation in kinds to municipalities. And over the MTF, the total allocation is 60 billion on this grant. Slide number 36 is the same information to depict the provincial split of the grant. Now, the first slide, Chairperson, the first part of the slide Under the Regional Bulk Infrastructure Grant 5B, those are the transfers to local government. Over the MTF, the total amount would be 11.6 billion, and those were utilities and water boards referred to as Schedule 6B. The total over the MTF is 11.3 billion, and the details to this, as indicated earlier on, are part of the appendix. So if you want to see which specific municipality is going to receive these funds, we'll do that as part of the presentation. Equally, 10% the water service infrastructure grant, we do have the split there per province on the 6B as well as the 5B. In total, allocation towards the 5B is 12 billion over the MTF, and under water service infrastructure grant schedule 6B, those indirect allocation, the total is 2.5 billion, and the details are included in the annexure. Slide number 38, Chairperson, these are the allocations to the water boards, Reading water board, also the schemes names are there, with a total allocation of 7.9 billion over the MTF. As indicated earlier on, Chairperson, we have two accounts that we are managing. This is the water trading entity, and it is funded through transfers from the fiscals, and also there's revenue collection from the sale of water. So the total budget that we have on this trading account over the MTF is 60 billion, and the programs are also reflected in there. TCTA is also included in these allocations. This is some of the infrastructure projects that are included on our APP, and in total they add up to 10.8 billion, and the details are contained in the annual performance plan of the department. Chairperson, this is the last slide, and as indicated, we do have Appendix 2, where it outlines all the grant-funded projects per province and per municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was the last presentation on this item. Can we move to, I think it was the next presentation? Nosipo, you will indicate when the chairperson is back.
Yes, Mr. Tseki.
Okay, let's move to the next presentation.
TCTA.
I think we will do them both and then engage on them after.
Chair, thank you. I'm not sure whether the presentation is showing on the other side. Can I get confirmation?
Is still thinking that it's coming. There you are. Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Chair, I'm accompanied by my chairperson, but perhaps one needs to start by acknowledging the chairperson or acting chairperson, the members of the committee, the minister, the deputy ministers, and probably maybe I need to hand over to the chair of the board of TCTA before I continue with the permission, of course, just the opening remarks.
Yeah, I think you're in order. Chairperson.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members. Good morning to the honorable members, the minister, the deputy minister, and everyone on the call. My name is Precious Subia. I am the chairperson of the board of TCTA. Chair, we are here with the minister, as the minister has already done an overview with regards to the importance of the sector for the country. So as TCTA, we are the implementing agent for the department. I will hand over to our CEO, Mr. Percy Sechemane, to highlight the strategic priorities for 23-24 and also the budget for the organization. Thank you very much to the acting chairperson, the minister, deputy minister, and everyone on the call. Over to you as CEO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. This is just the outline of the presentation that one is going to do, Chair, and the analysis of the budget would actually be done by the CFO who's with us, and we also have the complete executive committee team here in case there are more issues that needs to be responded to. You would realize that even if the agenda talked about the corporate plan and also the APP, as TCTA, we do not get any direct appropriation from government. In that way, our presentation is really focused on what we do. I think it's only the department that gets budget appropriation through the process. That is why their presentation is having that part. So from our side, we don't follow that particular route. Everything that we do is based on us going into the market to get money, and also the support we get from the department, because the issues that we deal with and the projects that we deal with, we hand over to the department upon completion. And then we have to make sure then that after raising the funding, we do manage the debt and make sure that we can settle it when the time comes, which usually is around 20 years. So this is the nature of what I'll be talking about, but I think in the interest of time, I'll just pass through these slides. And this is just the purpose of TCTA's corporate plan in terms of the mandate that we have, because everything that we do is related to the minister giving us the mandates. We don't do anything
That is
outside.
human. That
Yes.
is human. Can members see anything?
Yes, I can see the slides, Chair. I don't know others.
We can see, Chair. Thank you.
We can see, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, perhaps you might need to rely on the circulated ones. The problem might be on your side with all this load shedding. Is that acceptable?
Yeah. No, it's okay. You can continue. We have been just been load shed now at 10, so it might be.
Okay, I hope then you do have the copy of the presentation, because this was circulated. Just so
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to mention the page if you too fast or too slow. This is TCTA's mandate that is set in terms of our notice of establishment and directives issued by the minister from time to time. And we are an implementing agent on behalf of the Department of Water and Sanitation, tasked with the funding and implementation of water infrastructure projects. And this is just the process flow in terms of how our mandate flows from the minister giving us the mandate, the due diligence, looking at the costing, timelines and financing, and looking at design optimization, looking at construction, trying to get a strategy for funding, because we are the ones that go into the market to get the funding, looking at the project risk, looking at cheap money, because this can be quite expensive, looking at procurement, and then following all the prescripts as expected by government as an SOE, looking at the contractor development, skills transfer, local employment, poverty alleviation, job creation, and looking at the BEE enterprise development, and trying to also use local product where possible. So this really defines what TCTA does in one page. And this is just our vision and mission. I think in the interest of time, I won't spend time on it. And then just looking at the strategic goals for 23-24, looking at goal number 1, raising funding for implementation of infrastructure. Number 2, implement capital projects on time within budget to the appropriate standards and in a sustainable socio and environmental manner. Operate and maintain these designated projects to meet the department's requirements and specifications, manage debt within approved borrowing limits, ensure organizational positioning for the planned water agency as the minister had actually articulated and supported by the DG. And we're looking at maintaining the highest standard of internal control environment, ensure that all IT systems are implemented to support the business, and position TCTA as a thought leader in the critical aspect of water security, embed a performance culture that manifests as an agile organization. The ease and alignment that we've done to contribution to government outcomes, looking at how TCTA is, these are the government outcomes in number 4, 5, 6, 7, and how we contribute into those particular outcomes as well. If I need to come back to these, I will, and then still looking at the outcomes and looking at how TCTA is contributing to those particular outcomes. We do try and make sure that there's an alignment between what we do and what government expects of the state institutions. And the government priorities for 23-24, we follow closely what gets to be in the State of the Nation address, and this one was on the 9th of February 2023. The president announced the following projects, and I'm specifically honing in on those ones. Mzimvubu Water Project will start in the next financial year. The next phase will be the construction of the Lilani Dam, which will include a hydropower station. And maybe on this one, and I might repeat it later, there's a lot of discussions that we're having with the department, because our previous mandate by the minister was just looking at advisory in terms of how we could help on the ground. But we are negotiating with the department at this stage, and they are looking at increasing our mandate so that we can look at assisting with the project management aspect of this particular project. These other projects were mentioned, but they are not necessarily our projects, but we have an eye on them from a point of view of engaging with the department. But the final decision in terms of who will do them will be sitting with the department. But I'm just raising them here because this is coming out of the SONA. The Glen William Dam, Hazelmere, and the Tsanini Dam will improve supply of water to the west coast, eThekwini, and the eastern part of Limpopo. A massive rollout of infrastructure in the water sector. Like I said, Mzimvubu, it's advisory services for now, but we are engaging with the department currently, and hopefully we'll be able to find one another in terms of extending the mandate of TCTA. TCTA's response to government priorities in the water sector. Project at implementation phase, this is how we're going to follow the presentation. There are key challenges, I'll talk to those. Asset in operations, we are currently running the acid mine drainage treatment plants, and I will also expand on each of these in terms of the different basins that we have. And the delivery tunnel north of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. TCTA is responsible for the tunnel as soon as water coming from Lesotho gets into South Africa. At that particular point in time, we take the responsibility for the operations and maintenance of that particular tunnel. This is just opening up each of the projects that I've mentioned, that here we currently providing advisory role. The difficulty with this project is it's a necessary project, but it's not bankable in itself. That is why now the department is taking a lead on this project. And we are now engaging with them in terms of assisting with the, if possible, or hopefully with the project management aspect of it. I think the negotiations are at an advanced stage, but once the minister has given us the directive, then we will report on it properly. But on the other side, this is the project classified as a SIP or SIP under SIP 3, which is intended to enable the supply of potable water, irrigation, hydropower, and tourism in the region. The department is the implementing agent, and TCTA is providing program management advisory role. And these are the budget at stage 1, 105 million, and the key project activity will include completion of a 17-kilometer access road. This is in a very mountainous areas, and the roads are really bad, but we need to make sure that we can finalize, or the department with us can finalize the advanced infrastructure so that the heavy machinery can be able to move over to that other side. But it's a project that we're currently dealing with. And I think Mema Nyaka has actually highlighted this project as well. The TCTA service offering potential projects, Namitwa Dam, Glen William. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is just to make sure that the committee is aware of some of the projects, and we are looking at the strategic impact and the status. We have made some proposals, but it still remains in the hands of the department. But for us, we're looking at making sure that we would have a project pipeline that is healthy as well, because we are not allowed to make any profit or keep money at this stage, and we don't get anything from the appropriation coming out of the fiscus as well. But we are working with the department on this. The project that we're currently implementing is the Belt River Full Flow Augmentation Scheme, that for short we call BRAVAS, and I'll touch on that. Mokolo and Crocodile River Augmentation Project Phase 2A, we call it MAQUAP 2A. Mkomazi Water Project Phase 1. Minister touched on this as well, but I will touch on it as well. This is the MAQUAP or Mokolo Crocodile Water Augmentation Project. The purpose is to enable ESCOM to have a second source of water supply for the Medupi and Matimba power stations, including the flue gas desulfurization units. What is important with the FGDs is they actually are responsible for making sure that we don't get coal being as dirty as it is from a point of view of pollution. And one is looking at how this gets done, to the extent that even the World Bank is actually supporting this project, because that is a way of also assisting South Africa from a point of view of how do we still use fossil fuel if there's no other options, in a manner that can actually be sustainable and environmentally friendly. And this is the scope. The project charter looking at the cost estimate of 12.3 billion at this stage, and the water delivery date is October 2028. And the planned project key activities for the year that we're talking about, which is 23-24, is to commence with the procurement process for the contractor and award contract by March 2024, acquire 100% of the land and servitude to enable construction, commence with the relocation of the affected parties, because sometimes you might find that there are parties there or people that are staying in those areas. So the negotiations, that's where we start with, and ensuring that we don't get people to be disadvantaged by the building of all this massive infrastructure on their land. The second one, as I've said, is the BRAVAS project in Western Cape. And this is to deliver total annual volumes of 23 million cubic meters per annum of water to the Western Cape supply system by March 2027. The scheme will only be operational during winter months, as traditionally it rains in Western Cape only in winter, but we understand the problems given the challenges that the Western Cape has had also on the side of drought. And this is the scope. The project charter, we're looking at around 1.1 billion, but we'll see the actual numbers as we go into the market from a point of view of pricing as well. But from our internal and both ourselves and the department, this is the estimated cost at this stage. And this would be delivered by May 2027. And for the year that in question, we are looking at, in terms of the project key activities, we need to conclude the institutional arrangements, obtain the borrowing authority to raise long-term funding. These are at an advanced stage because National Treasury always says they will not approve the borrowing limit if we don't have customers that have actually agreed to be off-takers, because then we can't have the state agreeing to giving us borrowing limits to go and borrow money, and yet we don't have contract that says who's going to get the water, who's going to fund or repay the money that we would have borrowed in the markets as well. And we need to finalize the professional service provider tender document for detailed design and tender specification, and approve, get the approval from the appropriate committees, issue the tender documents and update land acquisition plan by 2023 August, and commence with the consultative process with affected parties. We need to increase the Mgeni system yield from 394 megaliters to 608 megaliters. The Mgeni system is already experiencing a deficit. I think in the past I did share with the committee that deficit has actually been experienced from 2016. And this is the project scope. And the project charter at this particular point in time state the long-term cost plan is sitting at 23.4 billion. And we are looking at the water delivery date by July 2031. And I think Minister also touched on this particular project. And the planned activities for 23-24 is to prepare the first PSP tender document for the tunnel and the pipeline and obtain approval from B specification committee, issue the tender document to the market and conclude the procurement process by December 2023. The good thing is we are now at an advanced stage, as has been highlighted by the minister as well, from a point of view of negotiating and trying to finalize all the loose ends in terms of negotiating with the potential customers, which are the municipalities, including the metro. Key challenges at this stage: TCTA's inability to execute the funding and procurement processes in parallel due to National Treasury issued Instruction Note 3 of 2021-22. We're looking at specifically section 8.4 paragraph A and B, and this has the following implications on project. Maybe even before I get to that, I need to just explain what that is. Under normal circumstances, especially for state-owned entities or municipalities, there is a budget that needs to be put in place before somebody can actually go out and issue a tender, which makes sense. Now, there has been an increase in people putting out tenders and then canceling them later without necessarily being able to give reasons for that and saying they don't have a budget. So National Treasury has actually tightened that aspect by saying you will not go and make any, put out any tender unless you can actually show that you have money. But in our case, we are different in the manner that our job is to actually go into the market to borrow funding. So currently we've had negotiations with the department, and myself and the Director General have agreed that we are in the process of setting up a meeting where we would actually engage with National Treasury on this particular issue to say, perhaps in terms of the model of TCTA, we need to be allowed to still run a parallel process, because all of these projects, as one can see, are long-term projects. And if we have to wait until we get the funding before we can start with the other activities of procurement, these projects will actually be delayed. So it's something that is on our radar with DWS, and we're just waiting as TCTA for the final date to be set with by DWS on our behalf, so that we can engage probably with the DG of National Treasury to look at this. It's just based on how we work, because we have to go out and find the money. It's not like we get appropriations, as I've said in the beginning of the presentation. Now, the implications, if this stays in, as it will take longer to complete projects preparation phase and increase the project development cost until the funding process is concluded. There would be an increase in overall project durations, increased cost of funding due to higher commitment fees on secured funding facilities well in advance of the need to draw down on the funds. If you have to get the money first, you would get the money, but as soon as that approval is there, somebody's going to charge you for having given you their money or having that money allocated to you because they can't use it elsewhere. So this will just make water provision quite expensive. Uncertainty on the amount of funding that must be raised, since more reliable estimates are only available at tender evaluation and contract award rather than at bid advertisement. You can go with what your estimates are, but the actual market will actually tell you how much the project will cost. So if you are not able to run these processes closer to one another, that creates a problem, because you might not raise the appropriate amount of money because you don't know what the market's response would be to whatever you are going to put out as a bid. There is therefore a risk that funding may be inadequate to at contract award, when it will be too late to do anything about it and could lead to considerable delays in the project while additional funding is sought. And if we have to come all the time and say we don't have enough money, it looks like we're not good at planning and what we need to do. But like I said, there is an agreement with the department because they can understand where we're coming from. That's why there is this planned meeting between us and the department to actually engage with the Department of Finance. And the acid mine drainage short-term solution, something that the department is still working on at this stage. The short-term action plan was to prevent decant in the western and protect environmental critical level in the central and eastern basins. And these are the pumping, the capacity, and what we need to do. And I am aware that this one found itself in the media as well, and I will touch on that in terms of where we are at this stage as a project. And these are the operation strategic risks. We try and follow this route of looking at the risks for all the projects that we're dealing with. Safely operate and maintain AMD plants to meet DWS water delivery volumes, targets, and agreed specifications. And these are the inherent risks. What are we doing in terms of controls, the KPIs that we have, and the response days, depending on where we are. The biggest one was in the plant where we needed to restore because we had some issues with some of the pumps, and during the lockdown, we could not even deal with the service providers or the people that were the original equipment manufacturers. But I'm happy to say that we have brought all the plants back and all of them are working. But of course, we have lost some time. That's why in terms of targets, we won't actually get there, but all the plants are currently operational, and we were able to find alternative supplies so that we don't rely on just one supply for these submersible pumps that are working in a very highly acidic water at this particular point in time. The second one is maintaining water levels below the environmental control levels. Like I've said, we were not able to do that. That's why it's red on the basis of when we had challenges with some of our pumping capacity. The next one is the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, like I've said, on the South African side, just below once you get over the border. The transfer, this augments the Vaal River system and generate hydroelectricity for Lesotho. Transfer or delivery volumes of 780 megaliters per annum and generate 72 megawatts of power, hydropower through Muela power station. This is on the Lesotho side. It has nothing to do with us, but this is a project that has codependency because most of the water that ultimately come into South Africa have to go via the Muela, where the Lesotho is able to generate power from there. But this is one of the major inflow in terms of the water coming from Lesotho into South Africa. And the Treaty Protocol 4 or 6 to operate and maintain delivery tunnel north transfer scheme in a cost-effective and environmentally sustainable manner. And we usually conduct the tunnel outages at 5-year intervals. And the next one is 2024. Currently, in terms of the critical maintenance activities, we're looking at appointing specialists in terms of the PSP and the appointment of the contractor. So for 2024, we are looking at an outage that might last at most about 6 months. And I know in the past, there was an issue to say, if there's no water flowing into South Africa for a couple of months, how does that affect our supply? But we have properly executed this in the past, and we make sure that there's enough water that will be able to service the requirements on the South African side. So between ourselves and the department and working with our partners in Lesotho, we are currently planning this, and on our side, we are the ones that needs to go and get the professional service provider in terms of following the procurement process. So this is what we're kickstarting. There was a slight delay, but we believe that we will be on time to make sure that we don't negatively affect the planned date. But we are working around this, and it's something that gets done every 5 years because we need to ensure that the integrity of the tunnel is not affected, because I don't think anybody is ready for having a tunnel that is not maintained. So this is where we are, and this is what we plan to do now between this year and next year. raising of funding, debt management, and implementation of projects. Risk for TCTA as a public entity due to challenges. Of course, the first one is raising of funding, reduce funders' appetite for lending to SOEs and general tight lending conditions. It's not so easy like it was in the past to go into the market and raise funding. And I think part of how some of the state-owned entities have actually been in trouble, we are looked at as part of the state in that way. So the market, the funding market is really tightening the requirements, and so does National Treasury as well. Project implementation, challenges in agreeing funding models with project beneficiaries and obtaining their commitment to sign offtake agreements contribute to delays in raising of funding. We all know that the provision of water is enshrined in the Constitution, and everybody will tell you that they require water, which is true. But on the other side, the actual cost of providing the infrastructure that is necessary, it's ever increasing, which makes it a problem when people say, look, we need money, but we don't have, we need water, but we might not be able to afford the cost of providing that water. It is an issue that the minister is currently addressing. He had called even the sector in terms of the chairpersons and CEs to look at this particular issue. But it's something that is not going anywhere if one looks at the state of some of the municipalities at this stage and their ability to actually repay or pay for water that they are actually consuming. And I think the CFO of the department has actually touched on this. Debt management, again linked to the project, the issue that I've just raised. Municipalities' ability to pay water tariffs, ensuring that tariffs are affordable, but also sustainable to assure viability of water sector institutions, tighter conditions of regulatory approval for borrowings, reduce flexibility to deal with unforeseen liquidity challenges. This has actually been mentioned by the department as well. If one looks at the viability of water sector institutions, I think the DG did say that one of the water boards had to be disestablished because of some of the debt coming from the municipalities. And it is a value chain from a point of view of payment, because we build the infrastructure, we hand it over to the department, we deal with the debt, but the department then sells the water to the water boards, who then purifies the water and sells it to the municipalities. If the municipalities are not able to collect the money to be able to pay the water boards pay the department then pays us so that we can actually deal with the debt, then it becomes a problem. And at this stage, there's quite a number of municipalities that are in trouble financially, and it creates this challenge, as I'm saying. So for us, we need to be able to manage the debt management better at this particular point in time with the department. At this stage, Chair, with your approval, I'll hand over to the CFO to do an analysis of the 2023-24 budget.
Thanks, CE, thanks, Chair. I'll just take you through the budget. I think the first slide is just on the principles that we adopted when we were preparing the budget. We did use zero-based budgeting, and we just took into account what was needed operationally. And for admin costs, we do allocate them directly to the projects that they relate to. And for those like the overheads, we share those costs amongst the project. And this is based on the time that is spent on each project, and on an annual basis, we do have an approved recovery system. That is, we just show in terms of that, how much is recovered from each project. That is reflected in the next slide, CE. That's where we show how the costs are recovered. On the next slide, we look at the main ones, basically 30% of the cost, the previous one, CE, the cost allocations. The main recovery, we have the LHWP, we recover 30% of the cost overheads from there. AMD is 10%, LHWP2 is 15%, NCOP, we have the 15%, and UMCOMAS is 10%. This is basically based on the time that we spend on the different projects. On the next slide, we look at the assumptions that we had when we're doing the budget.
For CAPEX, these we just budgeted for projects where the funding is available. I think CE did touch on the National Treasury Instruction Note where we cannot go out or even budget unless we have the funding available. On the office list, we did use our current contract. This is the contract that the lease agreement that we entered into at the end of last year. We have taken into account the escalation for the current year that is in line with this contract. For the staff cost, we used an average of 4.725%. And this is in line with the National Treasury guidelines, but we have also looked at what the BER forecasts are for the coming year. And for the vacancies, we only budgeted for them when we plan to fill them. So the cost for those that were vacant is not for the whole year. And as TCTA, we do have an optimization plan that is to ensure that we only fill the necessary positions. So that was taken into account here. For the MTEF, for tariff billing, we basically looked at the signed agreements and we looked at the budgeted water volume. So this is what basically informed what we have budgeted as far as revenue is concerned. And for other expenses, we just looked at the contract values. And for other routine expenses, we just used an escalation of 4.5%. And the CAPEX is basically based on our expenditure plans, CAPEX expenditure plans, and based on the LHDA long-term cost plans that they provide to us. On the next slide, this is just the budget for the year. I think we'll look at the 2023-24 for the revenue that's budgeted for. It's the 7.6 billion. And the operating cost for the year is 1 billion. And if we look at the operating inflows, we expect 6.6 billion to come into the business. And from this, we will pay the finance charges of 786 million. This is the interest that we pay for the funding that we raised during the year or even the previous years. And the net working capital for 2023-24, it's 5.8 billion. There is capital repayment of 1.2 billion. This is mostly the loan repayments that we'll be doing throughout the year. And the capital expenditure that we have is 310 million. And we have another 6.4 billion. These are Lesotho related obligations. This is as received from our counterparts in Lesotho, that is the LHDA. And it also includes the royalties that are payable as well. For the year, then we have funding requirements of 2.12 billion. This is before we have the accruals and non-cash flow items. And once we have taken that into account, as TCTA, we have to raise 2.8 billion for the 2023-24. And for 24-25, we have to raise 5.1 billion. And for the ITER year, we have to raise 8 billion. That is for the 25-26. The next slide, Chair, this is just a breakdown as far as the tariff revenue is concerned. As reflected here, the bulk of our revenue is coming from the VRS, that is 87%. We have 6.7 that is budgeted for in the 23-24 financial year. And the revenue from the other projects is 978 million. The next slide, this is just a slide split between admin cost and O&M. I think in terms of this, for 23-24, 52% of those costs is for admin costs. And for 24-25, we have the 49% and the 53%. So I think in terms of the admin costs, given that there has been slow movement as far as project is concerned, so when we look at how much is spent on admin, it tends to be higher. But I think once the project starts, we start implementing the project, this ratio will change between admin and the other O&M costs. The next slide, Chair, this is a slide on our consulting services. I think in terms of this, the main one goes to the legal services. And this we have budgeted for litigation matters that TCTA is part of. I think the main one is the KOL one, that is the main one that we have. And we have also budgeted for support, that the legal support that we need for finalizing the funding arrangements. And the other main one is the IT. We are in the process of implementing the new ERP system that is expected to be implemented and finalized by the end of this year. Hence, we have the 40 million for the year. And the other main one that we have is the services for internal audit. And given that we have co-source partners, not all the internal work is done internally. So we have a contract with a service provider who provides internal audit services for specialized audit and for the other audits as well if we don't have internal capacity. And this also includes the investigations that may be necessary throughout the year. And this is in line with what has been contracted for with the service provider. The next slide, Chair, this is just a split between the O&M, between the different basins. I think 40% of the cost goes to the central basin, 34% to the eastern, and then the 17% goes to the western basin. The next slide is the Lesotho cost. I think these costs, Chair, this is in line with the info that we received from the LHDA. There were construction contracts that were awarded towards the end of the last year. So the construction is expected to commence in the current year. Hence, I think from the 23-24, we have the 4.8 billion that is budgeted for, 3.5 for next 24-25, and then 25-26, we have 2.5 billion because all the contract has been awarded. The finance charges, Chair, this is just the interest that we'll be paying on the loans that we have. And I think this is expected to increase going forward. This is in line with the funding requirements that we indicated is needed in the previous slides. On the next slide, we have the capital repayments. This is just the repayments that we'll be making on the loans that we have. These are just normal loans. So that's the 1.2 in the current year, 1.7 in the 24-25, and in the outer year, 1.9 billion. On the next slide, we just look at the capital expenditure that was planned for, and this is based on the funding that is available. For the 2023-24, the main one that we have is the NCOP 2, and there is the 148 million. This is mainly the prepayments that we expect to be paying in the current year. We are, I think, in terms of funding for this, we are almost in the final stage of finalizing these loans, and we will be going out on tender for this project during the current year. And Chair, I think the next one, I think in terms of when we were preparing the corporate plan, we just ensure that we do comply, or we are aligned with all the government scripts, priorities and outcomes. And I guess as he has indicated earlier, we just looked at what was the government initiatives at the beginning of the year, and we have made sure that those are incorporated in this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There we are. Nosipo, you'll continue to guide. I think we are now on engagement. Members can talk to the 2 items that were presented. Members? Nosipo, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Chairperson.
Oh, members are satisfied then, if no one is talking.
Mr. Basson's hand is up.
Okay, the Basson. Do we see any other hand?
Not
Kunjo,
yet.
where is this icon here?
Can I go ahead? Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, please.
Chairperson, just to TCTA that I've got questions that I would like to ask. Chairperson, on the flue gas desulfuration, I think that was a conditioned by the World Bank that they must do it. And that's a good thing. My second question, well, that was just a comment. My question is, how many of the water that we're going to transfer from the Crocodile will be utilized by the Waterberg coalfields? And then I would like to know whether we've got sufficient offtake agreements for that water to spend 12.3 billion rand. And then the second one is on the Berg River, just on that 1.1 billion, if we've got offtake agreements with City of Cape Town. I presume they will most probably be the institution that would will utilize most of that water. Thank you, Chairperson.
Comrade Nancy and House Mhlala. House Nancy.
Morning, Chair, and the leadership, the officials, the minister and the deputy minister and the platform. I'm on load shedding. It's not easy, but I'm going to try. But starting from the last presentation, Chair, the TCTA, I think the TCTA should not panic. I think they have identified themselves in many years on how they can do the mandate of the minister, but I think the issue now is the economic decline. I listen on how the lenders have started to withdraw, which then giving problems in their challenges. I think let's hope for the economy to improve so that those lenders should consider their role as they've done. I'm coming to the good news that I see on different projects that are being implemented by TCTA, the Mokolo, the Bavras, and the other projects. They've got an end, they've got a start and an end. In Mzimvumu, you are not getting that. You continue to listen to problems. And I think the minister is very positive that the Imzubi project is going to flourish. But one wants to see, we know the start has been there for years, long before we came to this financial year and this term. But is there an approximation of when could be the end? When is the closeout of this project? I understand the issue raised by TCA that it's a rocky area, it's difficult and all those particular areas, but there could be an approximation of when could it end? When could the project be beneficiary to the communities? There's an issue that TCA has raised. Perhaps the minister in the platform would maybe give a light, that TCTA has established short mechanisms to deal with procurement for projects to get to the ground, and there's value for the money on the ground. But there comes a national treasury restriction on the procurement, which then handicaps TCTA progress. Now, perhaps the minister could give a light and also to say it is the minister that could intervene in this, because TCTA was established for a particular purpose. Now, that purpose now is negated by national treasury regulations. Perhaps the minister could indicate perhaps a process how to intervene on that. ngikhumbule Mfondini, bengingekabikho ready intona. There's an issue of Chair, the 10,798 bucket sanitation, which I think we had an oversight visit in Bloemfontein. That's a very good program to dignify the undignified people for years. You ask yourself, why was it done like that? And then it can be rectified. But my worry is the project is big. Is there a mechanism and an effort to accelerate the project so that even other provinces benefit immediately? It's a very, very good project to redress the past. I think the interest is how best can we accelerate the implementation of that program. There's an issue that is always said about the groundwater as a water service mechanism to our people. I'm still at the dark, Chair. Which provinces are benefiting in this groundwater? And as to how far have we managed to implement as the department? I know that there is some in Nelson Mandela. The issue is, it's not only Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela may not be the most needy, yes, because of the water scarcity, but in terms of the rural areas that are needy in terms of this. And the other issue that I'm not getting is the tanks infrastructure not the best for this water scarcity? There is a noise which someone sees undermining the effort that the department is doing. It's by virtue of department is dealing with the issue of infrastructure for sustainability. The water is needed yesterday. Is there no way that the department could enter a partnership with municipalities to establish water tanks for each individual household? Because amanzi anethayo akayi phayana kule ndawo kufuneka amanzi kuyo, makakayi phayana ematankini. Isn't there no way that kubekho that agreement, water tanks for each household, so that the drops of water that comes in go straight to water for people to benefit? It's a view that I'm raising in the meeting, Chair, that perhaps could be considered. I think those are the few issues that I wanted to raise, Chairperson. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you, Mama.
Okay.
Marips, Kenal Kwete.
No, thanks so much, Chairperson. Acting Chair, Mr. Zeki. My first question is, recently, the department held a meeting on the transformation of irrigation boards to water user associations. What is the outcome of that meeting? And what is the process to be undertaken to achieve this between 2023 to 2026? Chairperson, this is noted on page 20 under the Water Resources Management Program. Chairperson's question number 2, on page 23, the department knows that the bucket eradication program will be replaced in informal settlements in this financial year. How realistic is this? Given the committee's recent oversight trip to the Free State, the state of disrepair and dysfunctional wastewater treatment works in the province demands a complete reworking of the current model being used by the department to address the budget eradication programs. There will be a need for the department to increase the budget eradication program budget substantially to factor in the current challenges of limited or no water and sanitation infrastructure in the regions. Chairperson, what amount has been set for the budget eradication program? And has the department undertaken a revised feasibility study to handle these new risks? Chair, on page 42 onwards, I would like the risk management plans linked to the outputs of each and every program. However, noting the major challenges faced by the municipalities, I would have liked to see also a risk management plan for the RBIC and WISIC grants, which is underpinned by the failure of these grants being optimally managed. Is there a study that will be undertaken by the Department of Water and Sanitation or Water Research Council to assess the viability of the grants in each province to meet its intended objectives? Chairperson, this could provide legally binding intervention imposed or underperforming municipalities. What is the legal process that could be used? Chair, the Water Research Institute is currently undertaking an analysis of the water action commitments made by the nation states on Goal 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals, as highlighted recently at the United Nations 2023 Water Conference concluded in March 2023 in New York. Has the department seen the study related to South Africa? The minister at this conference entered into bilateral agreements with other countries. Could the International Relations Unit provide a synopsis of the outcome of the UN conference, the bilateral agreements with related objective thereof? Where does South Africa stand in respect of attaining the goals related to water and sanitation? Chair, with regards to the TCTA, the current TCTA financial model has a number of challenges. What input has the TCTA made in respect of the establishment of the National Water Resources Infrastructure Agency, with formulating a financial model that addresses current challenges? Chair, what is the current development of the intergovernmental compact to address the debt owed by the municipalities to water boards? How much is the national department owing water boards? And where in the budget is this amount located? Chairperson, previously we asked for a report on litigation costs and budgeted for the department and budgeted for by the department and entities. Could this report be provided with detailed information on litigation against the Department of Water and Sanitation or TCTA, and litigation by Department of Water and Sanitation against others? Chair, to what extent is the Development Bank of Southern Africa?
Presentation, Chairman. Okay, first.
So, Chair, to what extent is the Development Bank of Southern Africa involved in assisting the water sector in South Africa? If the DBSA has the technical and engineering capabilities, how many municipalities are using the DBSA as opposed to the water boards to assist with water services provision infrastructure. Lastly, Chair, lastly, Chair, with regards to the issue of the bucket eradication program, when will our visit be to the Northern Cape to assess the bucket eradication program, as the Free State oversight showed that there is functionality of plans to address the sanitation challenges? Thank you so much, Chairperson. And I wanted this something that I wanted to ask with regard to, just hold on, lastly, Chairperson, the other thing with regard to that bill, the NW-RIA bill, is the bill going to be tabled in Parliament in this parliamentary term, or is it going to be tabled on the 7th Parliament? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I protect the department on the, maybe just showing my face that I'm still around? Can I protect the department on the visit to Northern Cape? Because I think it's a committee decision. And then on other matters that Nancy also raised, if I can just ask a few questions on them. I think, Minister, we want to sympathize with you around the growing bill that for water boards, municipality, consumers and the like. But I think we have not yet received a solutions on this matter. Probably we need to put our heads together, because the men are both at TCTA and the department, they are talking commonality on that challenge. So I think it's an important thing that we need to work on it. There's an issue. I attended a meeting with the MEC of Agriculture in Gauteng, Social Development and Agriculture and Environment. They raise an issue of this above 90 days for water licenses. I think we can talk outside this meeting just to probably to get someone who can visit those farmers, mainly in area of Meaton and the like, let's say the municipality. This one is just a comment. I think Minister can also comment. These reductions from 9 to 8 of water boards, I'm worried that what informs this, could it be a saving or it's an issue of performance? It ends up with a question. As Nancy have already asked that question of the end and start. I think since our coming into Parliament, we have seen the positive nature of how TCTA conducting itself on projects. And again, Minister, we need to have a better relationship or working talent search or learning transfer of skill, whatever the name we could call, because it can be TCTA only within the department. It should be broadened to other projects as well. TCTA, you said Zanin Dam. Is it Zanin Dam the same as Nandoni Dam? Just be careful of not using different names, or there's a specific dam for Zanin. The issue of tourism on this dam, it's true. You know, development of these dams are bringing a lot of tourism and a lot of economic offsprings or spin-offs. I'm not sure whether do we bring the Department of Tourism in these kind of projects, because, I mean, the department may not be directly on the issues on how beneficiation comes in. on the tourist side, but I think the Department of Tourism should be pulled in. Then they can assist, in particular, Minister, on the BEE, because our visit in Lesotho have shown us that many of the people that are benefiting out of these dams in Lesotho are foreign nationals. So we need to bring them back. I think this one is purely a political difference between ourselves and what Ntate Leon was saying on the World Bank. I hear a member Mtlala is asking about development of South Africa. I want to check with BRICS Bank because I think the interest may be different. I mean, our history have told us how World Bank works in any country. South Africa has got an experience on that. One could say, why don't you go to BRICS Bank? And then, Mr. Chimani, in your presentation, you mentioned something about challenges and delays. I think House Nancy raised it. I couldn't understand when you are saying some of the delays involve the Treasury. But I think House Nancy asked it much better. If you can just emphasize on that one. And the link to that is the estimates versus the markets. We are recipients of prices. We are not creators of prices. But TCTA, it's quite a big institution. And even if yourself as well, you are a receiver of market prices than creators, because I think you have got quite a bigger share in the market in which somehow the prices can be determined by your experiences. The last one, I think, is the one Member Mshala asked about these litigations that you are saying you are involved in. It seems, okay, can you just expand further? Probably I may have missed it. Thank you very much. Probably we can get answers. Minister, I'm not sure how you approach. DG can lead us, and we take it from there. Thank you.
I agree, Chair. The presenters should lead, and then Minister will come and add. Okay, thank you. DG.
Thank you very much, Minister and Chairperson. I suggest I'll start by answering some of the questions, and then I'll allocate questions to my colleagues with me here from DWS. And then I suggest the CEO of TCTA could come in, and perhaps the Chairperson. So to start with the dates for Umzimvubu, the Umzimvubu project, the funding solution that we got for the Umzimvubu project was that it would be funded completely from the fiscus. So it's not a project in which the TCTA is raising finance from the private sector. As the CEO indicated, the TCTA is assisting us in an advisory role with regard to the planning and preparation for the project, but not with regard to finance. So the access roads are currently underway. They were started last financial year. We will be starting with the construction of the Ntabelanga Dam this financial year, and the Ntabelanga Dam is due to be finished at the end of 27-28. We are simultaneously starting this financial year with working with the municipalities in that area for the bulk water supply and reticulation and the treatment of the water from the Ntabelanga Dam. That will start in 23-24. It will go over a number of years. It will only be fully complete, all that bulk water supply and reticulation, by the 29-30 financial year. But water will start to flow to communities in the area as projects proceed. And then there's also an irrigation water supply element. That the construction of that part of the project will start in 24-25, and it will be completed in 26-27. So those are the timeline for the Umzimvubu project. and we have agreement with Treasury on funding from the fiscus over multiple financial years. Those are the targets and agreement with Treasury on funding from them. How the department can engage with National Treasury about the TCTA being hampered by Treasury regulations. It's not that the TCTA is hampered by Treasury regulations per se. The model, the TCTA model, is one in which, because it doesn't have substantial assets and it doesn't have revenues itself, basis of National Treasury guarantees. And National Treasury is limited from a financial management of the country point of view in the extent to which it can extend guarantees. When the country is assessed by the international financial assessment bodies and the country is given ratings, if it is seen that we've overextended ourselves as a country in terms of extending too many guarantees, then it becomes a problem and it can have negative implications for investment and the value of the rand, etc. So National Treasury is itself limited to some extent in the degree to which it can issue guarantees for projects. And that's one of the main reasons why we're establishing the NWRIA and merging it with the TCTA, so that the NWRIA, we are also, and that's transferring all the ownership of all the dams, etc., to the NWRIA. And the revenues associated with all of that infrastructure will also go to the NWRIA. So the NWRIA will differ from the TCTA in that it will have a very substantial balance sheet and all the revenues associated with it. And the intention is for the NWRIA in time to be able to borrow and raise money for national water resource infrastructure without guarantees for that borrowing. In terms of groundwater is used extensively in most of our rural provinces. But the challenges with groundwater really relate to things that we need to do as the department in order to strengthen the use of groundwater throughout the country so that it's used sustainably. And then it can be used increasingly, both so that it can be used sustainably and so that it can be used reliably. Many municipalities provide groundwater services, but they're often not reliable. So to address that, we've developed a standard operating procedure for municipalities to follow, covering things like how groundwater should be explored, how drilling should be done, how the testing should be done, how groundwater infrastructure should be maintained and operated. And we're going to include compliance to that standard operating procedure in the revised norms and standards for water services, which we're currently finalizing and which will be issued under the Water Services Act. The other main area that we need to strengthen with regard to groundwater as the department is our regulation of the use of groundwater. We're not regulating the use of groundwater strongly enough. We need to do more compliance monitoring and enforcement of the water use licenses system for groundwater users. And we also need to collect information on groundwater use by users under Schedule 1 of the we need to use so that they are not over-extracting groundwater and using their Schedule 1 rights to use groundwater without a water use license. So we're going to be doing blitzes and spot checks to check on those things. And we're also going to issue new regulations for under the National Water Act regarding the registration of water information and also stronger regulations regarding the drilling of boreholes and providing information. For example, we intend to require all drillers of boreholes to provide the department with information about the boreholes that they've drilled and the depth boreholes. With regard to the process to date or progress to date with regard to the establishment of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, we did get cabinet approval to consult to publish the draft bill for consultation. And we did start that consultation progress in about September last year. During that consultation process, the parties at NEDLAC, Business and Organised Labour, requested that a formal NEDLAC task team be established to consult on the bill. That is in process. The meeting is happening tomorrow of the task team. And also during the consultation process, the current lenders to the TCTA requested that an independent review of financial and legal risks to their current loans to the TCTA, and we did be carried out. We have worked with organised business to have one of the big financial loans to the TCTA should be have a process and completed during this month. If those processes go according to plan, we should then be going back to Cabinet towards the end of May with recommendations for final approval of the bill to be submitted to Parliament, and then hopefully in June, by the end of June, or perhaps in July, we'll submit the bill to Parliament. With regard to addressing the debt, one of the honourable members asked, what is the current position with regard to the debt? At the end of the last financial year, municipalities owed the water boards 16.7 billion rand, and that in turn resulted in the water boards owing the department 9.8 billion rand. In some cases, we supply water directly to municipalities, and in that, those municipalities direct debt to the department amounts to 9.4 billion rand. So of the total debt owed to the department, 68% of it is owed by municipalities and water boards, and the root cause of those debts is weak billing and revenue collection at municipalities. Honourable member did ask how much the department is owing the water boards. The department doesn't owe the water boards any money because the department doesn't buy water from the water boards. The department sells water to the water boards, which in turn treats the water and supply it to municipalities. There was a question about whether the involvement in the DBSA in assisting the water sector. We have a very good and close working relationship with the DBSA as the department. DBSA supports the water sector in a number of ways. It lends money to municipalities on an ongoing basis. In addition, the DBSA is assisting us as the department for some of our projects. We've appointed the DBSA as an implementing agent because they do have some capacity to manage the delivery of projects. They've developed that as a special support function to government, and we utilize that. And then the DBSA also supports us in terms of they have agreed with us to house our Water Partnerships Office as a ring-fenced unit within the DBSA to assist municipalities to put in place private-public partnerships. And then furthermore, there's another ring-fenced unit in the DBSA which reports through to Infrastructure South Africa and to the President, called the Infrastructure Fund. And we're working very closely with that unit, the Infrastructure Fund. Their task is to assist departments such as us to put in place blended finance projects. In other words, projects which are financed by a mix of money from the fiscus and private sector money. And we have a very good working relationship with them. They helped us to find the funding solution for the Umkomazi project, for example, and which involved a very innovative blended finance solution of a loan from National Treasury, coupled with a grant from National Treasury, coupled with private sector financing. And as a result of that, it was possible to make the project affordable to eThekwini and the other municipalities, and that broke the logjam, which was resulting in delays to the Umkomazi project, and enabled eThekwini and other municipalities to agree that the project could proceed, because the rates at which they would have to enter into the offtake agreements were then affordable to them. The question also asked about whether the DBSA could play the role of the water boards. The short answer is no, because the water boards are legislated institutions in terms of the Water Services Act, and they are technical infrastructure intensive institutions which own substantial billions of rands worth of infrastructure assets. They treat raw water or untreated water, and they provide water treatment and bulk distribution services to municipalities. The DBSA doesn't have the capacity to do that. And as I say, that role of the water boards is specifically legislated in terms of the Water Services Act. I'd like to ask firstly some colleagues now to assist with some of the questions. Firstly, Leonardo, if you can talk a little bit about Tzaneen Dam, and there was one other question as well for you.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, honourable members, Minister and Deputy Ministers. Just on the Tzaneen Dam quickly is that the construction unit will be the contractor for this project. Is on site already. With the issuance of the work permit that is outstanding at this point in time, but due by the 12th of May from the Department of Labour, they will be then commencing with work. We have appointed the Development Bank of South Africa, as the DG also mentioned now, as another implementing agent for us in this regard, and they already procured the services of the environmental as well as the occupational health and safety requirements have been done. And with the issuance of with the commencement that is due now within this month, we will then start with the isolating the dam, because at this point in time, the dam is open to public for various reasons and recreation. That would be the dam wall. So we will be isolating that, and then also we will be commencing with the river diversion to ensure that the river can be diverted through the dam at a low flood. The risk remains obviously of a high flood, but we've also been reworking the project plan to ensure that we can then reduce the project time to 18 months instead of 24. In terms of the recreational part, we have of the use around state dams. We have the resource management plan process, which has already started a number of state dams to allow the communities adjacent to the dams to be involved, as well as the authorities adjacent to the dam to involved with the development of plans in terms of how to manage the surface of the dam, as well that includes and also the socio-economic development and beneficiation of those communities around it. And the department is in the process of development and benefits. I'm putting out expression of interest at this point in time to invite the private sector as well to actually form part of this and to invest. Interest will be closely linked to one that has already been advertised in terms of the independent power producers. But in this regard, it will be opened up and there will be no limitations placed, so that we can see in which areas the interest would be from the private sector also to come and join as part then also of this tourism collaboration. So that would be my input for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add, thanks, Leonardo. Just to add, when we mention Tzaneen Dam, we are talking about Tzaneen Dam and not another dam. And the project that Leonardo is talking about is a project to raise the wall of the dam so that it can increase its capacity, so it can supply more water to the areas that it supplies. Rizimati, please could you answer some questions as well?
Thanks, DG. Thanks, Chair and Minister and DMs and honorable members. The few questions that I want to address, the first one is basically on the BEP, the Bucket Eradication Program that the honorable members made a oversight visit to the Free State. And the question was, is there an acceleration plan by the department to ensure that the program or the project gets to finality? And the straight answer is yes, there is that acceleration plan. And maybe just to clarify a few of the facts, is that the back and forth takeover of the bucket eradication between HDA and the department, which is well documented, has actually resulted in some of the delays in implementing the program. But over and above that, of late, when the minister took over the department, the decision to take over the BEP was actually made and enforced, after which, when we did the evaluation on accelerating the project, there were a lot of issues, honorable members and chair, which were not actually in place. And I think this is what we have emphasized in the past, even when we came to the portfolio committee. And just to touch on a few issues. One was that there were no proper scoping of this project. There were no technical or engineering designs done for this project. And over and above that, the scope kept changing as the project gets implemented. And we are safe to say that as of late last year, towards in the last quarter of this current financial year, those issues have now been resolved. And I think what we have seen on site also bear testament that some of the working conditions were not as per the original anticipated plans. And I can confirm that our new acceleration plan for all those sites in Free State, like for instance, Clogaland should be completed in July, August this year. Fixback should be completed also in September. In Senegal, also in September, in October, as well as Senegal, and then Petra Stain will be done by July, August this year. Rates in the same time as well, and Arlington and Delsby. So this acceleration plan has took into effect some of those delays, some of the missing engineering designs which we have done. And over and above that, we do have an oversight meeting together with the contractors, which as the DDG, I'm actually sharing that on a bi-monthly basis to ensure that at least we reach the finality. And the other question which talks to BEP was the financial commitment, as the honorable member has asked. For the current financial year, between now and end of July, August this year, we have at least committed 162.5 million to ensure that the project basically gets accelerated. We have also took into effect that there should be also more work done on the project for us to reach the finality. But the issue that was also raised in terms of the BEP to say the department needs to make more money available, and how we are going to address the issue of the BEP, the budget eradication throughout the country. I must say this, Honorable Chair, that we have of recent gotten our National Sanitation Framework approved, which basically gives us a state that the issue of budget eradication is actually a shared services. It rests much with the local government, but what we are doing, we have established a system where our National Sanitation Framework gives us the ability to at least support the function. We also have the governance function in there, as well as the regulation, part of which is aligned to how the department is going to apportion grants to assist these municipalities to ensure that the bucket are basically eradicated. So it's basically a shared function. The question on the issue of the JoJo tanks, which was raised to say, can it be looked at? This honorable member talks much to the issue of water harvesting. There have been quite a lot of programs that municipalities were basically investing on this, because the function goes far over above what the department is geared to do in terms of Water Services Act. We are actually on our side only doing more on the reticulation. Our grants are more tailor-made to support municipality to do infrastructure refurbishment and upgrade, but it does not have the function to go to more consumer level in terms of installing tanks. And this is a function, as you have said, that we're exploring an idea that we think we can basically look at it together and see how maybe using MIG on their side. On the issue of municipal support, the legal part of it, when it comes to our grant, Honorable Chair, our grants have a framework that we call the DORA framework. So they're basically gazetted and managed by our National Treasury through the DORA framework. Now, it's got rules and functions there, which gives us the authority to manage and to see how our grants are spent. Over and above that, when municipalities fail to spend a particular threshold, National Treasury has the authority together with us to withhold some of those funding or ensure that they get spent. But what the department has been doing of late to ensure that such doesn't actually happen is that we have the support functions through our regions. And I think one of the functions which the department has actually established, the water services management, where we are stepping closer to all the municipalities to ensure that at least the fund allocated for such project gets spent. My last response on the questions, DG, is what they've said about the SDG 6, as to whether the department has managed to see what the UN Water Conference basically published. Honorable Chair, we as the department, we are the ones who took the success of the SDG to the UN success of the SDG to the UN, yes, together with the DG and ourselves. But what we want to also state, Chair, is that compared to the departments in the country that are actually managing the SDG, because it's actually a shared component, the Department of Water and Sanitation in this case actually states SA as the custodian that basically deal with our data management and how we're managing our SDGs. When we did our mid-year review in February this year, they came and they actually gave an assurance that the department is actually far ahead in terms of how the other departments are doing in the country. And over and above that, in the African continent, South Africa is actually way ahead of the rest in terms of the SDGs. So we took this information and the success to UN, and we actually debated around it, and we are quite aware of how far we are doing. And some of the projects that TCTA also spoke about, which the DG emphasized, and which the minister also spoke in length in his opening remarks, are all geared towards us achieving our SDG 6. And those are the answers that I can give for now. Thank you, DG. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rizimati. Finally, Chair, I'd like to ask Toko Sigwaza, our Chief Director for Oversight of Entities, to answer a couple of questions.
Deputy Chairperson, Minister, DMs, honorable members, thank you, Deputy Chairperson, honorable three questions. The first one was raised by Honorable Mokhala around the transformation of irrigation boards into water user associations. As we speak now, a minister has issued a gazette notice on the 28th of April 2023, Gazette number 48483, which has been published, calling all the 200 irrigation boards that are currently under the 1956 Act to submit proposals for transformation within 90 days. So, Honorable Mokhala, that process is at an advanced level. The Constitution has also been reformed to allow for equity in the way that the irrigation boards are going to be operating. We have also had the various meetings with our regional offices, and they are now geared up to receive the proposals and to make recommendations to minister on the issues around transformation of irrigation boards. Secondly, the issues around the strengthening of debt collection for water boards. The minister has written to all 144 water services authorities requesting them note the interventions that water boards intend implementing. And SALGA has reverted to Minister requesting that they be given until the 15th of May because they will be consulting their members. So there is, since DG's meeting in December, there has been progress. With regard to Honorable Tseki's issue around the reconfiguration of water boards, the rationale for reconfiguration is around at a provincial level, because water is a volume-based business. You need to have to improve the economy so that in terms of cross-subsidization between the urban and rural, it can be improved. Also, the rationalization of the numbers of entities that are reporting to Minister, also ensuring that the skills are spread out around the province, as well as the issues around the access. And since this process, the water boards are at an advanced stage in terms of rainwater moving to Mpumalanga, developing their due diligence, and also rainwater and Mahalis in terms of the assets that are being looked at. They are currently having those advanced discussions, and Minister has also signed the Gazette notice from Ngeni and Mhlatuze to be reconfigured to coincide with the financial year, which is the 1st of July. And that Gazette notice should be out by next week, including the change of name of Ngeni. There is a proposal to change, and we are consulting for 30 days. Thanks, DG.
Thank you, Paul. CE.
Thanks, DG. It would seem that most of the questions have actually been addressed by the department, but let me just deal with the ones that might not have been addressed. Member Basson, I think I agree with you on the issue of the flue gas desulfurization. I think that was a comment, but we do agree with you. The only issue that you raised was in relation to the Mokolo crocodile issue in terms of do we have off-takers if one looks at the total cost of the project. Primarily, the main off-takers are ESCOM for their generation for Midupi and Kusile, but we also have Exaro. So for those, everything has been finalized. But I think the department, in terms of the planning with us, we have looked at future requirements, and I think they've been catered for. So we should be covered in terms of that. The question related to Bravas as well. In terms of potential utilization, we already have about 6 of the municipalities having gone through their process, and the councils have actually approved. There's one that is just on the final leg thereof. But those are not the only ones that needs to be considered. We also have irrigators, and I think the department went to great lengths to try and balance the requirements in terms of making sure that they can look after the irrigators, much as we have to look at the municipalities as well. In fact, the problem here is whether there's enough allocation, there's enough water to allocate. So we would not have a problem in terms of the off-takers from there. The member Sihloai, the one issue that you've raised has to do with the lenders tightening of conditions in terms of the difficulty that it creates. But unfortunately, we are part of government. And if you look at state-owned entities, we are part of that. And for us at this stage, maybe it's a timing issue, the economy will turn around. But from a point of view of when do we need to have water being delivered, it has to happen now. So we have to deal with this. At West, the issue would be that we will, based on our reputation, be able to get the money or the funding, but it might be a bit expensive. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So we try to create a balance between the two in terms of saying we can get money, but it will be expensive. But we need to try and make sure that we can still get competitively priced water because everybody will actually need water. And I think this relates, and I'll attend to this issue of section 8.4 of note 3. I think this is the question that was also asked by member Teki in terms of the treasury delays. The delay, it's not a normal one. It's the conditions that are put in the PFMA that now says you will not go into the market to issue a tender unless you can actually show that you already have money that has been put aside. Under normal circumstances, you'll use your budget to say, this is what I'm budgeting and this is what I'm going to do with the money. For state-owned entities or even departments, they'll go through the budgetary process in terms of the votes. But for the projects that we do, we don't go through that process. We don't get money through that particular process. We have to go into the market and borrow money as long as we can show that this project is bankable. That means it can pay for itself. I think that's a way of also removing some stress from the national fiscus in terms of the amount allocated, because it can never be enough. Some of the project needs to be able to pay for themselves. And those are the ones that the minister would give us the directives to actually deal with. So all we need is to get to a situation where we are allowed to run a parallel process. We go and get the money in the markets as we are also now looking at the tendering process. We've always done it that way and it's always worked out. But like I said, it's a process that we are undertaking with the DG in terms of how we're going to deal with that. Member Mthala, there is input that we're making in terms of the agency formulation. In fact, there are two sides to it. The first one, I think the DG has dealt with in terms of in the agency, how would we go about raising funding and all that, and how would that work now that the agency will have a balance sheet. But we also have current lenders who have given us money under certain conditions with the current TCTA as it stands. So we have to try and make sure then that one does not affect the other, and we don't have people pulling out and saying they want their money immediately. But through the process with the DG, we are now dealing with the funders to make sure that not only can we protect their interest at this stage, but we can make sure that in the future, they are still playing a role in terms of us being able to go there and get money from the funders, especially for those projects that would actually be, that are feasible and can actually self-fund, which is primarily the model. But I think things will be a bit different because now we also have, or the agency will have support of a big balance sheet, and we'll see how that works out. Currently, there is an independent player that is actually helping with the assessment. But later, probably this is one issue where I'll call in the chair to also just augment on this one. The litigation reports, I think we should be able to provide the committee with that. But primarily, the big number that you've seen from the TCTA side, interestingly, does not have anything to do with the project itself. It's about the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, where the government of Lesotho itself had some issues that have nothing to do with us, where they failed to actually deal with the issue. But there was a process, a litigation process that led to a competent court coming out of South Africa, actually giving the Fraser is the company that was fighting with the government of Lesotho, the right to garnish any payments that are due to Lesotho. And they identified the Lesotho Highlands project as that kind of project where they wanted us to pay them rather than the government of Lesotho. Now that posed a lot of problems, because if we did not start the process assisting the department and the minister to look at mounting a defense, it would have meant that we are not paying in line with the treaty, and we might have put South Africa at jeopardy in terms of submission of or the availability of water coming out of Lesotho, because Lesotho would have said we are not paying them. So we were forced to get into the issue of defending that, and there was a need to have some money set aside as a guarantee. That's why the amount is big, but it's not what has been spent, but we had to put that aside for that particular process. So there are other processes that we follow in to try and make sure that we should be able to recover that, because currently it was in defense of the project itself, though it had nothing to do with the water sector per se, but a decision coming out of judgment by the courts was actually against the government of Lesotho. And these guys just targeted money flowing into Lesotho. So I hope I've explained that. But I think we should be able with the department to provide you with what you've requested. And I think the issue of DBSA was addressed by the department. Although I'm saying the DBSA is primarily a bank and we go into the same markets to borrow money. Sometimes we do work with them. We have a very good relationship, but as well, we can also acquire or procure money cheaper because we go into the same market with them. So there is that working together as government institutions. Member Tseki, I think you've got the response in terms of Tsanin Dam. Tsanin Dam is an existing dam. I think the department has done well in terms of not just looking at new dams. There is Nandoni, there is Tsanin, but here they're looking at raising the wall, which is cheaper than starting from scratch and having a new dam from scratch. So in terms of capacity, that's what the department always does also. And it's a good thing because then the costs are quite less than if they start from scratch. The issue of treasury delays, I think I've answered that a bit. Maybe the part that I did not get into it, estimates versus the market. You are correct in terms of our understanding and footprint in terms of what the cost would be. That's why with the processes as they start, we would actually put an estimate working with quite viable instruments to decide what we think the project will cost. But if it takes a long time, and our processes are long because there's approvals by the department, there's approvals by National Treasury, before we get to that point where we can say, now we are ready to go into the market. That gap, and as well, the market conditions, is very important for us to test the market conditions at all times to see whether our estimates are right. So if there's a big gap, it creates a big deficit between what we said the project will cost and what the project actually costs. But I think the minister's move towards the agency will actually reduce that because, as has been said by the department, you will now have the construction unit coming in and will have to work closely, or the agency will have to work closely with the planning department in terms of ensuring that we know what projects are in the pipeline so that we can start working closely with them. Perhaps one thing that I need to say on this is the financial markets work differently. You would have financial markets looking at their credit committees, to be specific. To say there's the water sector, there's TCTA specifically. How much of our risk is sitting with TCTA? If we give all the money to TCTA or most of the money to TCTA, what happens if TCTA were to fail? These are the kind of decisions that they need to make. So they like to diversify. That is why from our side, we are aware that we need to get all sources of funding so that we can minimize that. But the opposite thereof is you don't have as much control in terms of understanding your market because we go international as well to borrow money. There are projects that we're funding from an international point of view. So we have to take all of these things into consideration. Some of the things that are keeping me awake at night is we work with some of the DFIs. There's all these developing challenges in terms of the BRICS Bank versus the other wars that we have, like the Russia, Ukraine. Those things have an impact on who's going to give us money, how much would that money cost? But we have to widen the scope because we can't just rely on South Africa giving us money because that can be quite expensive. And it makes sense because they don't want to be overexposed to one entity as well. So that's why there is a difference between estimates and what the market finally says. But that's on the money side. Now you also have to look at the construction side in terms of how many players are in that space and how many of them can actually take the project as big as the ones that we're dealing with. But it is work that we are able to do. But one was just highlighting the challenges that are there in terms of what we need to do. So I think at this stage, Chair, I would hand over to the chair just to address the issue of the agency. I hope we have touched on all the issues because the department really did address some of the issues that relates directly or indirectly to TCTA as well. Chair?
Thank you. When you say chair, you mean me or you mean?
No, I'm sorry. The chair of TCTA. I'm sorry.
Don't forget, I'm having this position, so I'm excited. So I'll be thinking that you're calling me. Okay, chairperson of the board. Chairperson of the board. Let's make it clear.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the acting chair. Thank you, honorable members, for all the questions. The CE has already highlighted or responded to all the questions. I think from my side was to augment on the issue of the agency that was asked by one of the honorable members. As the TCTA board, we are committed in ensuring that the timelines as detailed by the department are actually met. As a result of that, we have provided comments on the draft agency bill that was issued earlier this year, and also on the agenda of the board. It is a standing item. So that is our commitment to make sure that the timelines are achieved. Thank you very much, Acting Chairperson, and all the honorable members, and the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It was on a lighter note. That Chairman, the issue of price takers and price creators is very important. Mara, you will come back to it later. Let me just get if members wants to make follow-ups. Or Minister, you want to come in at this stage? Okay. Any members? Let's move to Minister. You can close the issues.
Yes, I want to make a follow-up, Acting Chair.
Just 2 points, yes, quickly.
No, thanks so much, Chairperson. I just want to ask a question, the department. Has the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation assessed your targets in the indicators and outcomes in your annual performance plan? And what was its assessment? Because the Auditor General on many occasions argued that the set targets identified by the department in the past were overly ambitious. How has the department addressed this to ensure sustainable water resources management? Lastly, Acting Chair, since we are dealing with the annual performance plan, we need to know if budget is aligned to targets, indicators, and outcomes. I think the department must also inform us of that. And we also requesting that the committee must call State South Africa and DPMA and Department of Water and Sanitation to input on the Sustainable Development Goals as defined by the United Nations to hold countries accountable on meeting water and sanitation targets. Chair, lastly, with increased load shedding and inability to ESCOM to manage the power in this country, what other alternative is the department looking at to ensure functionality of its water treatment works so that we do not risk the lives of residents with overflowing sewage? This issue was raised with the Mbani District Municipality at our recent oversight. Solar power is but one option that we want to hear about. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Although the monitoring and evaluation can also be asked at monitoring when they come to present, but it's fine, the department will respond. Yes, Nancy, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just one question that I left out. The minister is clear to say the role of the national department in terms of water provision is to look on the norms and standards. But I think due to challenges, the department finds itself entering an area which is a municipality responsibility, and legally so, because of the deterioration of the water services. I just want to check in that, which I appreciate, Chairperson. I appreciate, because people want water. Who gives water? It's immaterial. But getting to legalities of the issue, municipalities get to their budget process and IDPs in their plan for water services and budget for this. How is the two gelling? How do you address the two? There's budget for this and it's not happening. And there comes budget of national department to intervene on something that is budgeted for. What happens to the other budget? Is there some way of addressing this so that there's no duplication of funds in the same area of operation? I wanted to get a clarity on that.
Thank you, DG. You can run on them quickly so that we can ask the minister to make some comments.
Thank you, Chairperson. To start with the last question, Honourable Sitwai is right. The Constitution divides between national responsibilities and municipal responsibilities with regard to water. But the way in which it gels is that the Constitution, in addition to that, provides checks and balances. So it doesn't just say water services provision is a municipal function. It also says that it's the duty of the national government to support municipalities, and it also provides for the national government to set minimum norms and standards and to regulate those for water services. So the budget that the department gets, which goes to municipalities, is the budgets that Zimati talked about, our regional bulk infrastructure grant and our water services infrastructure grant. We work closely with the municipalities on the planning of projects and prioritizing of projects which are funded by those grants. And we ensure that the priorities are aligned. And if municipalities would like to spend RBIG or WISIG money on a project which is clearly not a priority, we don't agree to it. The RBIG and WISIG grants are there to provided there to assist municipalities to deal with infrastructure backlogs. We don't give municipalities any money for the operation and maintenance of their infrastructure because, according to the fiscal framework of the country, water is supposed to be financially self-sustaining. So municipalities are supposed to pay for the operation and maintenance of water services through revenues that they get from the sale of water. So I think that explains how the budgeting works. The rest of our budgets that we have as DWS are used for national bulk infrastructure, which is the infrastructure such as the dams which store raw water, and that raw water is then provided to water boards to treat and then sell to municipalities and sometimes directly to municipalities. So in that regard, our water budgets are spent on a different area of infrastructure than the municipalities use the grants that we give them in their own revenues to spend money on. But most importantly, perhaps, Honourable Sitwai, is our role as the regulator. DWS is the regulator for the whole water sector, not just for the national functions, but also for water services. And what we're increasingly realizing is that we need to strengthen our regulation of water services. In the past, we focused more on regulation related to the National Water Act, which is regulation related to things like pollution of water resources. But now we need to move more towards playing a stronger role as the regulator of water services as well. And in that regard, we are developing revised norms and standards for water services, which will be issued shortly. We're finalizing those. But also we're looking at possible amendments to the Water Services Act to enable us and the Minister to have a stronger role as the regulator of the sector, which would mean that we would have to take regulatory actions against it. And that's where probably the most important role, our most important role is and will be in future in terms of addressing and turning around the deterioration in reliability of municipal water and sanitation services. Another question was from Honourable Mukhala was whether the budget is aligned to the APP. The short answer to that is yes, it's highly aligned to the APP. The second question was the effects of load shedding. I'd like to answer that first by talking briefly about what we as the department are doing to not have load shedding affect our operations on our dams that we're responsible for as DWS. In that regard, we've recently issued a request for proposals from the private sector to install renewable energy power generation facilities at our dams on the basis of long-term offtake agreements that we'll enter into with them, because our dams use quite a lot of electricity. They have large pumps there which are electricity intensive. So the intention is that without us getting into the electricity generation business, but that we'll enter into partnerships with the private sector to generate electricity that we will use and buy from them through long-term offtake agreements, so that we can have surety of supply of electricity at our dams. Then the second area is municipalities themselves and the water boards. And we're encouraging all the municipalities and water boards to similarly look at putting in alternative sources of supply of electricity. So some are more further ahead than others. We don't have any money specifically for that purpose, but there is a possibility that municipalities could use grant money of various sorts in order to invest in alternative energy sources related to their water and sanitation infrastructure. We also are encouraging water boards and municipalities to take other measures to better manage load shedding. For example, to maximize and optimize the filling of reservoirs so that there's sufficient water in the reservoirs, so that when the power goes off in load shedding, the reservoirs can be used to supply water. So we're encouraging them to optimize the filling of reservoirs while the power is there. And we're also encouraging all of them who receive electricity directly from ESCOM to apply for exemptions from load shedding. There are provisions for that. ESCOM has in fact already provided exemptions from load shedding to quite a few, including some of our major water boards facilities from load shedding, where they purchase electricity directly from ESCOM. But in many instances, the water and sanitation departments in municipalities don't buy electricity directly from ESCOM. They buy it from the electricity department in the municipality. And the electricity supply is embedded in the whole municipal electricity grid. So there they would have to work together with their energy department in the municipality to isolate their water and sanitation facilities if possible. That can be quite expensive in some instances, but we are encouraging municipalities to look at that as well. And then finally, I'd like to ask Barbara to talk about the DPME's assessment of our targets and indicators.
Thank you, DG. The DPME did assess our annual performance plan, as well as the National Treasury and the Auditor General. They looked at various issues, the smartness of our indicators, and also the compliance with the State of the Nation address requirements. And in a nutshell, I can say they were satisfied with the proposal that we have put on the table, which is this APP that we've tabled to the portfolio committee. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Chair.
Minister, ushayele iqhumshelele lapho.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. If I could just indulge on your kindness, and maybe allow the two deputy ministers a comment or two before I do mine, and all of us will be very short. Thank you. If they so wish.
Thank you. Minister, yes, indeed.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, the department, members of Parliament, the chair, Comrade, or rather, Honorable Tseki. Really, for me, it's an honor for us to be here. And I think from my side, really, Minister, the department has covered most of the issues that have been raised. But I think we need to thank the members of the portfolio committee and questions that have been raised, including some of a possible proposal that the Department of Water and Sanitation can look into in terms of ensuring better efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of water and sanitation services to our people, really. And I think that as a department that plays a critical role in supporting the growth of the economy and creating job opportunities through the management of water resources, development of infrastructure projects, and provisions of sanitation services. I think from my side, Minister, I wouldn't want to really go over, but safe to say that I think part of the challenges that has been, spoken to, largely the issues of the complex legal and regulatory framework for water services, which can make it difficult for municipalities to really comply with the regulations and manage their water infrastructure effectively. And as a result of the department is looking at the legislative amendments of Water Services Act and the National Water Act. And these challenges highlight the need for innovative solution and collaborative between government, communities, and the private sector, really to ensure the sustainable management of water resources and the provision for affordable, high quality water and services for all. Let me thank you so much for the opportunity. Minister, over to you.
All right, thank you. If you could allow the Mahloba's one, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair, Comrade Tseki, and for handling our affairs very well in your acting capacity today. Thanks the Minister, the DM, the DG and the team, and Chair TCTA and the CE and the team. I thought, Chair, you will commend us because I know we've been doing a lot of oversight work, and you could see on the ground there is a very positive things happening, and I thought that even Fighter Musala will acknowledge that too. But just maybe 2 or 3 issues. One, no, it's a serious matter, Comrade Tseki. Siyasebenza, yabo. And must but wherever you went, you find good work. You must acknowledge it, comrade. So, I think one point that I think, Minister, we can take home is a proposal by members with respect to rainwater harvesting. And I think we should be able to go back, like the DTG has said. Government is looking at cushioning the poor around the issues of electricity. A number of options are being looked at, the issues of solar and how they can be accessed and be funded. And probably because there's always a correlation between energy and water and food nexus. On our case, we might want to engage with local government, but also with the Department of Human Settlement, and look at a possibility of an integrated human settlement approach, where the way they design even houses in future, they should have the capacity to be able to harvest water, and government can be able to provide to those that are indigent. There are many possibilities. The issue of taking a small portion out of the free basic water, ensure that each household indeed, like members are saying, it has, I don't want to use the word Jojo tank, Comrade Chair, because we'll be promoting one brand. We should just say aesthetic tank, rather than reducing our meeting into a promotion, but it's a very good idea. And then secondly, the issue of tourism you raised, Minister took a decision long time ago. Our dams will no longer be single purpose, like they used to be for irrigation whether for strategic use, especially in Mpumalanga for ESCOM, but all other activities. Therefore, the issue of transformation and the beneficiation of using water that is closer to communities, and communities taking a keen interest for socio-economic activities, whether cultural, religious, but also other things, is an important component. And then lastly, the issue of groundwater and rural water schemes. Groundwater remains one of the major components in terms of the water mix, especially in provinces that are struggling in terms of access to surface water, or there is little rainfall as compared to other parts of our country. That's why you could see in many parts of our country, whether in Northwest Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, groundwater is still the main option that is there. But the groundwater can be managed properly by the water services authorities as an important water scheme that can provide communities. I remember Honorable Mam Nancy, she was raising the issue of Nelson Mandela Bay. Indeed, many rural communities, including the partnership that Minister has done with the Gift of the Givers, Coca-Cola and others, we are doing a lot in many parts of our land using that. But the department is trying to strengthen its capabilities with the Water Research Commission around the issues of exploitation of groundwater, because we need more data so that you don't have a situation where people just go around and say they can drill for groundwater, but no scientific evidence exists about the availability of aquifers and the level of the yield. But it's an important component that will always be exploited. And groundwater, our message is that it's not an inferior quality. We will always use groundwater as long as there are proper tests that are being done in terms of the SAN standard for drinking water quality, because human activity might also impact in terms of the quality of water, especially in dense and populated settlements, where sometimes the seepage, where some people are still using those VIP toilets and other kind, where there can be an ingress of the fecal sludges into underground and impacting on groundwater. But we should be able to promote it, but also with all the standard operating procedures around issues of quality and management. Thank you, Minister, and thanks, Comrade Chair. And hopefully when you conclude that recognition you'll give. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very few comments left. I hope and trust that there's now certainty about Umzimvubu and where we're going and where we're taking it to and when, because there was that specific question and discomfort that were not very clear on the matter in terms of articulation on timelines and so on. We're very clear. Department is now working on procurement processes and all of that, but decisions have been taken, and we should start as soon as those allow us to. But of course, if there are opportunities on the way in the years to the end, opportunities for alternative funding on phases, it's something that we can consider. But for now, there is certainty. The fiscus is committed to do that. Minister of Finance, we have long discussed the matter, and there are those timelines. It is going to be run by our department. The second one is, there are many things that, or many issues that have been raised on groundwater. TG has responded, DM Matlaw has responded. We do want to emphasize the need for the regulatory framework on groundwater, and we're dealing with that. And we hope that after our meeting on Thursday and Friday, where the department is expected to present finally, we will conclude the matter and therefore publicize it and engage other stakeholders on it and the people generally, because we need to control, there needs to be some control on groundwater. Maybe I should just to say so. One of the beautiful projects on groundwater is in the Eastern Cape on Kuchakop, where you have several boreholes that pump into a treatment plant for iron and sulfur, and then water get taken to the grid. It's quite a beautiful project, but there's one that may come at a later stage in Dinokana, where you and elsewhere you identify the most sustainable aquifer in an area that is in need of water, and groundwater seems to be a solution, but you find one sustainable aquifer. And then you drill there such that you have other infrastructure that take water to the needy people. But generally, this thing of boreholes everywhere by every municipality any time, and then they dry up in 3 months and 4 months and 5 months, have wasted a lot of money. We want to shift from that because it wastes money for the public for a very little benefit, not going to beyond 8 months, a year, and so on in some cases. Maybe we should, what we want to think of much more and get worried much more as a result of scarcity of water is to say, what do we do to deal with runoff water? Just that particular question, it's something that we're going to be grappling with going forward. The next question is on the US trip or conference. I'm sure the department will compile a full report, and then that will, which will get distributed to members, or will take you on board on what the outcomes were. But it was a very good conference where the world was together, about 168 countries, and there were no serious caucusing on positions that are inflexible and fighting. Everybody was agreeing that SDG 6 need to be given a chance, and governments must cooperate where they need to across borders, and that governments on their own must make sure that we extend accessibility to water by everybody, everywhere, including in islands, including in so-called remote areas in our borders, within our borders, and so on. But there was a lot of convergence on key issues, including on funding and investment, and persuading the West to consider the conditions that we have in our countries, especially in the continent, but wherein money can be invested. So we went to many briefings to say to them, conditions are quite conducive. But one of the highlights in that was that we now have a former president, Kikwete of Tanzania, being chair of the global investment in Africa. He's leading that structure, which is part of the global investment, but he is in global investment Africa. He is leading Africa in terms of attracting investments from the world, including cooperating with the global investment initiative or network. And then on SDG 6, there's no other way. We are as a department quite at work in terms of accessing people with water and so on. The legality, I think DG has explained the kind of situation, as you said, honorable member, that we find ourselves having to deal with water services in municipalities, which ordinarily would be done by municipalities. It's not like there's a legality problem, because we have Section 63 coupled with 139, which clearly allows that where you see that people are not accessing water, you need to intervene. You can't just sit and say, no, mayor, all the time. But there's also Section 54, which is quite enabling. And I'm sure there are other sections that are enabling in the Water Act. One thing that we said is the bottom line. We're not going to hide behind any legislative framework in the country to prevent us from hitting the call for people to give them access to water. Because in any case, the country, the constitution, the legal framework, it recognizes one department in the country as a Department of Water and Sanitation. Municipalities are stakeholders, and then they get designated as authorities. What we're finally looking at, and we'll be doing that on the 4th and 5th, is the difference between being an authority and being a provider when it comes to municipalities, because we think that in order for all of us, including municipalities, to really shift from this quagmire of inability to provide water, it doesn't matter which party is dominant in any municipality, they just have a problem. We need to draw a line in between there and come up with an idea which we will engage the portfolio committee on. But it is all over the world, there is that recognition. Municipalities by nature, while they are designated to give basic services, they also have, by and large, a political element. Sometimes they have, in practice, political overtones, which make basic services suffer, especially on the high end of such services, because there will always be quite a larger element of their time and expertise getting taken by the politics in any municipality. And therefore, water being sensitive and essential, and water being life itself, it makes sense to shift it a little bit and protect that from the day-to-day political issues and so on. And so we want to follow the world trend, and also in line with the expectation of the population, that whatever happens, they need to get water. They don't care whether you have load shedding or not. They don't care whether you have a mayor or not. They don't care about anything. They just want water. And I think the country must hit that call and take it very important and serious and seriously, as opposed to saying, well, while you are fighting in a municipality, you will suffer, or if there is an inability, and then you will suffer. And so by and large, we get into municipalities. One example, for instance, is Lekwa. We went to Lekwa at some point, and almost very little was happening there, despite the fact that the municipality is surrounded by a huge river, the Vaal. But due to our intervention, although there's one MP who comes from that area who, after 2 months, was rubbishing our visit there, saying that the minister came there and there's nothing that is happening. We want to say that there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of mud now in that area, and we'll be going there in a month or two, just to make sure we assess. And we are hoping to see a far different Lekwa in terms of water and sanitation provision. But we did that without Section 63 and without, but using other sections. And the general response, we went up to so far as negotiating with finance, that is treasury, to say this municipality, apart from their capacity and so on, they don't have money to do what is expected of them currently, and we did that. But in some cases, the budget part reflects in rollovers. So you will see a municipality allocated money to do 1, 2, 3. They don't do that. Money gets rolled over, This is by and large the case in the Northwest. Also part of quite an element thereof in the Eastern Cape and other municipalities where they can't spend money. And that's why you need a different model as well, instead of complaining about rollovers all the time. But there's also fraud, issues of fraud. But of course, the one that I've spoken about, that they don't have all the money all the time to do what they're supposed to do. And in some cases, just general decay on services. So those are the things that I wanted to highlight. But I'm pleased to say that where we work with municipalities, with or without Section 63, we end up establishing a very favorable bond and understanding and commitment to water, which is in favor of the people, because we make it clear we're neither coming here as a big brother or as what, but what is important is that people must get water, irregardless of whatever, and so on, and that's the priority. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm in chair of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, dear, and thanks everyone. Yeah, I think there will be further debates in the next meetings around the issue like I raised on the prices of the markets versus the prices that TCTA can bring up. Another thing that we always hear, especially people from Gauteng, Minister, is the issue around the Vaal area, the issue of sewer system there. I think it's another matter. I'm just raising it in closing. But if you want to comment, you can comment that we need to continuously follow up. On that note, Minister, if you want to say something, I can close.
No, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, there we are, the meeting, not the meeting. We can release the department and remain with the committee to deal with that item of the program of the committee. Thank you very much, colleagues. And indeed, the members of the community in many areas were quite excited, but not in all areas. So there is a note that there's progress, but it needs continuously to be managed and be observed and be oversighted. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And long live the Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, and Nosipo, bring us back to, okay, there you are. Thank you, Nosipo. Members, I'm trying to zoom this item. Can you read it, Nosipo? I can't zoom it here.
Today you are here on Tuesday, 2 May 2023. It was the briefing by the Department on Water and Sanitation on Budget Vote 41, an annual performance plan.
No, just that's the remaining item, the one that we are dealing with it now. I think is the committee program.
Yes, it is. Oh, I thought you were talking about the program since it's on the screen.
No.
Yes, it's the consideration and adoption of the committee program, term 2 of 2023.
Oh, I see. You are already taking us through on where we are. Thank you, members. There's the program. I don't think we need to read it. Thursday, there's another meeting, the 9th. Can we adopt the program? Or how do you approach it normally when NOSIP? We just look at it and adopt, isn't it?
Yes. The
Can you
members
please
have it already.
Scroll down, Nozipo.
Get ready for the debates, Comrade Mshala, and then you must talk real things there. Yeah, you can scroll, go down, Nospo. Move Nosipo next page. There we are, members. Nosipo, the issue of virtual and issue of physical, that one comes as and when there's a call for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the program. Can you clarify that?
It doesn't have to be on the program. Yes, you are correct when there is a call for it and there is a venue available.
Okay.
Okay, I can
Members,
also, okay.
Yes, Ma'am.
The issue as well of water tariffs determinations is not on the programs. Is there a reason?
Normally, we discussed it in the last quarter, isn't it? You remember in the last, towards March, was it not on the agenda? I think we have passed it, but Nosipo, you can talk to it.
Ms. Tsega?
No, we have not yet received the tariff determination for 2023 and 2024.
Ms. Mushala is correct, but there was a reason why it was postponed in the first term. But I thought the chairperson and Mushala would, sorry, Ms. Mushala and Ms. Tsege would explain if Ms. Tsege is on the platform, or they can explain in the next meeting.
Yeah, let's note that. Let's note that, Member Mushala.
How do we adopt if we don't get any? How do you adopt if something has?
It's a provisional adoption, Member Mshala. Akere, we are still going to consult.
Or provisional. Okay, the other
Yes.
issue is the issue of oversight trips. Aren't they supposed to be on the program as well?
They should. I think we are left with Northwest.
Northern Cape.
Northern Cape, sorry.
Yes.
Is it not going to be in the last quarter of the year?
On the third term of Parliament, Mr. Mashiko ute August, but the Parliament will be still on recess on August, so definitely it will be on September.
Okay.
Chairperson.
There is something there on June into consideration. Oh, it's an adoption of a report.
Of the reports,
sorry.
yes.
Yes, Member Leon.
Sorry, I've got my hand up. Can I just ask, Chairperson, that we don't get short notice of changing virtual into physical meeting, because flights are very difficult and to get, so if we just can have a week in advance or 3 or 4 days in advance so we can get bookings for us if we change virtual to actual meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Agreed. I think that's important. It's rather changing from physical to virtual that is easier, but the virtual to physical, I agree with Member Leon. Nosipo and your team, you'll work on that matter, ne?
Chairperson?
Yes, Mr. Zegi.
Yes, yes.
With regard to that issue of tariff determination, I think we need to adopt and pass the tariff determination as municipalities are instituting this thing in June. We actually need to address this thing urgently with regards to our program. But I do understand, because you said that we are provisionally. I don't know how are we going to get this report again, this program again for adoption, because you are saying it's provisionally adoption. And
yeah, I think Member Mshala, we are remaining.
This maybe for Thursday when Mr. Mashiko is there, or I don't know what we're gonna do, or maybe to go and revisit it and put it on the program, because it's very urgent by June.
Okay, let's make, I think you are guiding us, you are guiding the meeting quite well. We are adopting this provisionally on the question that you are asking on a possibility of adding that item, which we seems should be fine with it. I don't know whether it's any other member who has raised their hand. Just
We did
go
not
back.
hear you, Chairperson. We did not hear you.
Oh, did I go missing? I'm saying you are correct. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, I'm saying you are correct that you are guiding the meeting in terms of whether on Friday or on Thursday we can't have an answer on the matter. NOSIPO will work with that back to the chair and member Tseke. So let's leave it there. But this is a provisional only on that item that you are proposing to be added. So after we got yes or no, then the program would have been adopted.
Chair, my hand has been up.
Yes, ma'am.
My apologies for joining late, Chair. There was a confusion in terms of time, so I had a problem. My apologies. I want to sincerely apologize before I can move to the point. Chair, with regards to the draft program, I think you are correct to say that it's a provisional program and we must consider issues that are being raised by Honorable Member Mohlala. The issue of oversight visit also can form part of that because it is not included in the program. And this issue of determination, I think it's only those two issues with virtual and physical. I fully agree that we must be informed in advance. Maybe if they change a program, we'll know that for this particular week, we'll be able to attend virtual. For that particular next meeting, we'll be able to attend physical. If the committee can also amend the program in terms of that, when we adopt the final program, we are quite aware of preparations that we should make in terms of logistics. That would be my submission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take that on Thursday. NOSIPO, that means you need to have a way of presenting it on Thursday as an item just to finalize it.
Noted, Mr. Sek. Yes.
Yes. And then, can I ask a question to members? Noting that Member Mohlala and what Member Matuba is saying, is it not possible for us to go on these oversight during recess? Okay, maybe we should not answer it now. I'm just thinking loud on it. It's quite a long time there. Okay, any other item, NOSIPO?
No, Mr. Sek, it's your closing remarks and then we're done.
Oh, thank you very much for the support, comrades, members. Let's hope the chair will be fine. You know, the chair is in the big mountains of Bushbuck Ridge. Sometimes we can't access him, but thank you, NOSIPO and your team, and thank you, members. The meeting is officially closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Viva, Chair, viva. Acting Chair, viva. Well done.